In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, newshound, a man who believes
of the 20th year of this decade, no, this century. Hey, how you doing? Good morning and welcome to the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Wednesday, Nduoko.
Happy Wednesday, Eric Latif.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well.
Good.
I thank God.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And CT Muga, it's good to see you.
Well, I thank you, Eric Latif, for seeing me good. Thank you.
Good for showing up to be seen.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Did we ever conclude on the colors on this? You talked about there was a gray somewhere. That was clearly there's obviously black. What else?
It's one of these opportunities you have, Rust. You want to give people an opportunity to expand not just their horizons, but their color schemes.
This is it. Eh?
So if there looks like there's like a bit of a mix somewhere, yes, there is a mix. If you don't think there isn't, then once again there isn't. Yes. So opportunities galore.
Kabisa. Kabisa. Yep. What is it?
No, I see two colors.
You see only two colors.
Told you. Opportunities. What do you see?
So what color do you see?
I see burnt orange and black.
See? What I'm referring to as rust has been called burnt orange. Eric, your turn.
Oh, you're calling it rust.
Yes.
I see rust actually. Maybe not burnt orange. Burnt orange is what is behind you on the wall. So yeah, I would agree this would be a rusty.
Or dirty yellow.
Eh, Omo. Okay.
Can you just decide? Is it orange or is it yellow?
Burnt. On day one, I gave
fresh.
my verdict and I told you what I see.
Okay.
Now, I even saw grey.
You'd seen grey at some point.
Yes.
Do you still see it?
Yes. As I'm looking at the sleeves, I can see grey. And it isn't my hand I'm looking at. I'm looking at the sleeve of the shirt.
All joints, the shirt fine.
Okay, sure.
So there's some color there.
Oh, the shirt fine, well.
Definitely, that is one way of looking at it. There is some color.
Okay. Karibuni sana katika kipindi cha leo. We have a couple of discussions and conversations to have. The private sector in Kenya and its commitment to a green and sustainable economy. And then we also will be having some sort of an interesting conversation that has been brewing and bubbling under in this country. And so we want to just continue bubbling it under and giving it some prominence. And this is on the issue of legalization of marijuana. So in this last election in the states, several states have voted to legalize marijuana. So they are doing it. So does it mean that we should also do it? Does it? So that's a conversation that we'll be having. Other countries have done the same, legalizing marijuana for medical purposes, for recreational purposes, others. So in the case of Kenya, there are those who have launched a campaign on the legalization of marijuana, looking at it from the business perspective, looking at it from the health perspective. So we'll be looking at it from all those perspectives today, and we'll have that conversation. In the meantime, COVID-19 is a big deal. Yesterday, one of the most visible persons from Palestinian authorities, Saeb Erekat, the long-standing Palestinian negotiator, died from COVID-19. And in this country, we recorded the highest number of deaths in a single day from COVID-19 yesterday. And these were how many?
24. 24 deaths in a single day. That was the highest number. Also, if we look at numbers of those who tested positive, were 1,344. Those are the numbers that were reported yesterday, and still looking at more testing being done. But yeah, it's not an easy moment. It's it would appear that now the Ministry of Health is saying, look, we've talked, we don't know what other message we can put out there. But the numbers continue to rise. That one we cannot shy away from. So if we're looking now in the country at 64,588 cases with 1,154 deaths. A total number of 753,959 tests have been done in the country. And hopefully looking at ramping that up as we go along. But yes, cases are rising. There seems to be no let up at the moment. And it looks like it will get to the... If this is put... From all indications, it continues in this manner. It looks like there could be a point where hands may be thrown up and say, okay, we don't know what we're actually going to do in terms of the health system and bed capacity and such. Warnings coming from the Ministry of Health.
So what are they saying? That we are running out of bed capacity?
Well, running out of not at the moment. But if things continue to rise, if cases continue to rise in the manner in which they are, and more people presenting with symptoms as they have been, as opposed to the way it was before, we might see ourselves in a health crisis.
So what is this thing that needs to happen apart from the numbers? Because everything that we were talking about last week indicated that we were already overwhelmed. So what has changed? Why is this narrative now appearing as though we are actually not overwhelmed, but we're heading towards there? Which is which? The fact that it isn't being reported doesn't mean it isn't happening. And then I'll have to ask the question, were we actually even overwhelmed the first time we heard of the report? And when we say we were overwhelmed, what does this being overwhelmed represent? What was it? What characterized it? I think the simple rule
Who said
here,
we were overwhelmed? The ministry. Was it the ministry, or was it just media reports indicating that there's a rising number?
No. The ministry the ministry has not come out, has not actually said we are overwhelmed and things are terrible. They have said that if things continue in this manner, that there's a possibility that the health system will not be able to handle it. But there's something that Dr. Amoth said yesterday I think we need to pay attention to. Some of the deaths that were reported yesterday didn't occur yesterday. Some of the deaths that were reported yesterday, for example, happened a month ago. But that report was coming to the collation center for them to say it was now.
A month ago.
Yeah, I'll read that statement. I mean, he said it yesterday on the podium, but then here it is. He said, the deaths reported in the last 10 days are not entirely deaths that occurred in the last 10 days. The numbers are based on a mortality audit, which the Ministry of Health commissioned. Our teams thus found deaths have occurred even months ago and which have not been accounted for. And this is according to Dr. Patrick Amoth during his virtual question and answer session. He said deaths that are linked to COVID-19 are those of patients who tested positive for the disease and also met with a certain clinical presentation. We, however, continue aggregating the other deaths. Right? So you see that 24, it means that as information gets to them, this happens to be one that came from COVID. So it was not that 24 people died yesterday.
Well, then nothing happened yesterday as was reported. Simple.
Yeah.
So when you tell us we have this
highest number of deaths in a
Exactly.
day.
That's what I'm saying.
Then what we're saying is we should disregard this information until they're clear about the dates, the times when these occurrences that they're telling us on a daily basis actually occurred.
Do they need time? Do they need like a month so we can
They need
give
a
them
minute to
break,
be able to sort it out.
We can give them a break. Don't be talking to us on a daily basis, all right? So gather all your information, get all your ducks in a row, come to us at the end of every month and tell us this is what has happened in the last 30 days. So it's so difficult for you to actually record a death.
Right.
And transmit that information.
Can you
from
imagine
a
that somebody's
hospital
telling you on the 10th of November that, yes, we've 24 today, but it's possible that a few of them
died in September,
months ago. But you make it seem as though 24 people died today, recorded, registered. So it's possible then also that more people may have died yesterday, but it doesn't come to this tally because you've not been
Those
able to
ones will be
establish.
recorded in
December.
They'll tell us next month.
This issue of deaths, let's get it straight. Long before COVID, people were dying on a daily basis in this country, okay? They're not just being reported on a daily basis. What we heard coming from Nakuru and what we've heard from people who talk to us, who call us, is that the health system right across the country has been strained tremendously. What we also know for a fact is that the numbers of people who have tested positive in the country has continued to increase. Right? Now, if the numbers that we have been given so far by the ministry represent and aggregate over a period of time, then we need to understand over what period of time and when. Because the way it is reported, you get the impression it happened the day before.
No.
Yeah, we also need to understand. So if, for example, we are recording a death that happened 20 days ago today, is it all the deaths that happened 20 days ago that were not captured? Or how did this miss in the reporting within the last 20 days?
What happened?
Is it that people died at home and then it was not recorded? Because every death is known by the government. There has to be a burial permit issued.
What they're saying, though, is that
And there has to be a death certificate.
And
so
there
they're
has to be a
receiving
death
this
certificate
collation.
that will come out.
Sure, but they're receiving this collation like they received it yesterday, Tuesday. And this is so now what is telling you today is essentially what has been happening over time. So they received this number today.
And how useful is that exactly?
Exactly. So it doesn't mean that all these people died today. It means that in the reporting that they got, they've commissioned, right? So in the reporting that they got from around the country, they received, okay, so there was 1 death in Siaya, there were 2 in Nakuru, like this.
So why can't they just come out and say, all right, so we have seen now that in the month of September, these were the number of deaths. We have added another death in for September. Don't come and say, in the last 24 hours, or give us those kind of figures and say 24 people have died.
Because you make it seem as though 24
Yes.
people died on Tuesday.
Because that's what we know, that every day when you come to report, you're giving us a situation report over the last 24 hours.
Of the 24 hours.
When you tell us that we have X number of new cases, we are assuming that those new cases are what you've recorded in 24 hours. If there are new cases that you recorded a month ago, tell us that, okay, so the figure for October, we are adding
for those tested last
5.
month,
Yes.
yeah.
What is this? I mean, what is,
Look, the numbers
Why
are
is-
the numbers. Just give us accurate details of those.
yes. And also work on getting this information and the statistics. I mean, I just don't understand how a death that occurred in September or October can
It's
be
being tallied for
reported
November 10th.
on the 10th, or can even be reported or arrive. That information can arrive at the health ministry this week. Let's say Monday.
That you reported as 24 hours ago. There's
How
a big
can-
problem with transmission.
We are
of
dealing with
information
an
here.
emergency. We are dealing with an issue of COVID-19. So yes, there must be something that has been put in place across the country so that you can capture this information, especially death. All right. So you can say testing took time. So have a way of just collecting this information. There's no way you can tell me, we had to commission an audit to find out how many people died. In
Which
this
is
country,
exactly what they've told you.
you actually went through 30 days without knowing that somebody was dead. In this Kenya? Absolutely not.
Can you understand what the
Every
reasoning
chief
behind this?
knows when somebody is dead.
Listen to this, however.
Every chief.
What Amoth went on to say, and I just, as a point of information, hospitals are the main source of data and are not integrated into the civil registration system, and many systems are only partially digitized, leading to lag times in reporting. So because hospitals whereby deaths would have occurred, in terms of their reporting and how they're able to transmit this information, they're not into the registration system, for example, of government.
Right.
So lifetime is a month, is it?
Lag time is a while.
So actually, it's possible that we can come to January and they tell us 500 people have died.
In the month of October. Yeah.
I think we have a dysfunctional government.
You know, the
So
ministry,
let's just do this. So you tell us about the other parts of the world. Let's forget about Kenya. So
For
Kenya,
now.
we don't know what is happening. Let's just say that. All right.
We can find out what the weather
We have some new figures in 24 hours. We don't know when those people died. We don't know when those people tested positive. Some of them that we could have been reported yesterday as testing positive. How many positivity cases yesterday?
1,344.
Some of those people may have recovered already. Or some of them may be among those that died. Or some of them may have died and we will be told about them in December.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, Sawa. So there's COVID in the country. Let's just agree
Leave
on
it
that.
at that.
And that we need to take care, and we need to, just like Mohammed keeps telling us, we need to work on boosting our immunity. That's important. It's important to take care of yourself. 6:15, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Let's see whether it's raining today or whether we'll be talking about yesterday's weather today. That we can assure you. The weather we are talking about is this morning's weather and the projection for the day's weather. All right. Hiya.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Okay, let's see what it looks like this morning.
You're listening
And in
to
Nairobi,
Spice.
mostly cloudy conditions, a bit of a sprinkle here and there. Mostly cloudy for now. Rain will come back later. Highs of 21 and lows of 17. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 14, going to highs of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions this morning as well. It's mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 15, going to highs of 20 and lows of 12. Clear skies in Eldoret at 14. Sunny conditions through the day. The highs will be 22 and lows of 13. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 20. Highs of 27 and lows of 18 today. Mostly cloudy in Kakamega as well at 20. Highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's raining in Mombasa at 25. The high will be 29 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Malindi, giving way to rain soon this morning. Highs of 25 and lows of 16. Light rain in Uganda and Kampala specifically at 20. Highs of 24 and lows of 17 today. Dar es Salaam is experiencing light rain this morning, going to highs of 27 and lows of 25. The high will be 21 in Joburg today, currently cloudy at 13. And in Lagos, it's mostly clear at 26. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. Kinshasa is clear this morning. Don't know how long that sunshine will last. At 24, it will be a warm day, going to highs of 33. Sunny conditions in Beijing, China, 17 the high and lows of 3. And in Paris, it's mostly cloudy at 12, highs of 14 and lows of 10. And in London, clear skies at 10, highs of 14 and lows of 9. And finally, for now, it's still Tuesday night in New York, clear skies at 18, going to highs of 21 and lows of 17 through the day.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
2046. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is up. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Who's online?
Solo Were says, good morning, everybody. CT is hoping that CT is in a good mood today. I don't know why.
CT, are you in a good
CT,
mood?
are you in a good mood today?
Well, the mood isn't better than it was yesterday or the day
It's
before.
not better?
No. It's not.
No,
The
are you
issue
in a
is not
good
whether
mood
we are comparing.
today?
Are you in a good mood today?
Solo is concerned.
Don't be defensive, CT.
It's not that
Don't get into a bad mood just because of a question.
Okay. So I'm now in a good mood.
Good.
All right. So now that I'm in a good mood, let me ask. I am in the same mood as I was in yesterday and the day before.
Okay,
Now,
that's
Solo
not
might
the
not be very happy
question.
about that.
Are you in a good mood today, CT?
All right. Let me also
Yes or
respond
no?
with a question. How do you want me to respond?
Yes or no?
Yes.
Good.
Oh, fantastic.
it.
Mr. Were, you should be happy now. Dorcas is tuned in from Malindi, as is Beta Ashley from Machakos. Benson, good morning, tuned in as well. Olo Caleb says, good morning. Good morning, everybody from Robert Mbogo, who's tuned in from Mombasa. And Nana Kwame Asamoah is tuned in from Germany and is watching this morning. Ghanaian, but tuned in from Germany. That's great.
Nana Kwame Asamoah.
Yes. And Ugu Fred. That name is very interesting. It doesn't sound like a Kenyan one, but okay. Handel Juma, tuned in from Rabai. Where's Rabai?
Rabbi, my friend.
It's near Nakuru.
Mombasa. Mombasa. All right.
It's in Kenya.
If you are in a place called Mazeras and you are now traversing that particular terrain heading towards Mombasa, all right, it's those environs.
Rongai is near Nakuru.
Rongai, yes.
That's what I was
Narabai
thinking about.
Was known as the center that some of the early Christians settled in.
The
Ludwig
oldest
and
school in
Kraft.
Kenya is in Rabai.
No, it is actually in
The oldest
Tiwi.
church.
School is in Tiwi.
Right.
Tiwi, South Coast. Rabai, North Coast.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Rabai are part of the Mijikenda, the 9 communities. Yes.
Tribe as well.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Marabai. Who are the other 8?
Jibana, Digo, Duruma, Giriama, Kambe. You figure out the rest.
Chonyi.
Good luck as you do.
He waited.
And then finally, Sarah Wangalwa is tuned in from Qatar in Doha. Good morning,
Hi.
everybody.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show. So let's get into today's happy mood proverb.
Okay, he who does not clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour.
Surely.
Extrapolate on that one.
He who doesn't clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour.
Yes.
Okay. Haya, tutasikia. Let's go to the headlines today. What do you have?
So, season of blackmail. BB Madhouse is what the Standard is calling it. Confusion and double speak aplenty as politicians scramble for positions and influence. In the handshake report, elected leaders make outrageous demands to support reforms with little dividend from Mwananchi on the menu. Surprise, surprise. What governors want. Number one, all monies held by parastatals that perform devolved functions to be transferred to the counties. IEBC functions devolved so that elections are managed at the county level. Number three, not to be forced to appoint women as running mates. This one, they did not like it. Number four, post of deputy ministers to be introduced and appointed from Parliament. And five, not to be held criminally responsible for loss and wastage of county resources. We have two quotes here from William Samoei Ruto. One, recommendations by governors to better the workings of devolution, which has decentralized power, resources, and growth centers deserve attention. We must resist the temptation to build walls to shut out better ideas. Raila Odinga, on the other hand, says it is basically done, and there is little likelihood that new ideas will be pushed into it. However, there are groups that feel their views were not captured in the manner that they were presented during collection of views, and those are the corrections that we are promising to make.
So what is Raila saying?
Okay, it's done, but it's not done. You can take it out of the oven and add some things to the pie, and hopefully it will come out.
There is little likelihood that new ideas will be pushed into it, but those that presented their views and they feel that the way they presented their views, they were not captured, we will correct the report to accommodate their views.
We've heard you, basically, is what you think.
All right. So the two principals were expected to go and meet with the governors and the deputy governors yesterday in Naivasha. No.
Nothing.
No show. Waliwaona. In Kenya.
Nothing.
They did not see them. Not even a single one.
What was the meeting about? Was it a meet the
BBI.
president and the former prime minister, or was it meet and discuss what it is that you want?
Meet and discuss these things
BBI,
that you're
and then
interested in inputting.
Meet with the principals and,
Was
give
that
them the
assumed,
idea.
or was it
It was planned.
that the principals would be there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So then they were not there. Was there a specific date on which they were supposed to be there?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Okay. And they weren't there yesterday?
They weren't there.
Okay. Maybe they can wait today.
One principal was taking train rides in the city. The other principal was, I don't know where, but according to Oparanya, who is the chair of the Council of Governors, he told them, by the way, Raila joined in virtually at some point in our session. So I don't know who it is who was just holding a phone like this, live streaming the thing to Raila. And Raila looked at it and said, Nyinyi.
Let me join.
Me, I come there. If this is what
Not
you're saying,
happening.
I'm not coming. Shauri yenu.
You
But look at
discuss.
these demands anyway.
Interesting.
So, this is something that's coming from just the governors. So they want us to reintroduce assistant ministers, but at the national level, not at the county level. Interestingly,
Reduce assistant ministers.
Introduce.
Assistant ministers.
assistant
Yes.
ministers.
We don't have them?
Nope.
No. You have CS
We have CASs.
and they have CAS.
CASs are assistant ministers, but those ones are not formally recognized as assistant ministers. So we basically just want to go back to Parliament and appoint people from Parliament and make them join the executive, because now we also
So we're
have
not
a
exactly
hybrid
increasing the numbers. We're just creating appointments. Let me explain. You're already an MP. If you are now an assistant minister, it's just that you have an additional job apart from being, but we have not increased the numbers of people who are actually being employed.
No, we are not increasing the number of people who are being employed. What we are doing is we are increasing positions
Yes.
in the executive. Just the same way we're talking about expanding executive.
Yes.
Oh, so why do we need assistant ministers?
Why did we need them
For
before,
why?
and then why did we remove them?
Yeah, we removed them because they were not needed.
One gets that impression. If you take that argument as logical conclusion, then you will not need a deputy president, you will not need a deputy governor. And if that is the case, then we will say, give us deputy senator.
Now that we have cabinet secretaries and we have principal secretaries, now we are going to count them cabinet ministers and principal secretaries again, because some of them are coming from parliament. What value are we going to get from appointing an MP to be an assistant minister? What value? What is this value that we're going to get out of it?
It's a political value in terms of what it will produce, in terms of will we get better services, will we get... There's a likelihood that we will. That has been an argument for some time, in that the pressure to perform will be greater. It won't be somebody else's. You see, right now, a CS is CS. Here you have to be voted in first, number one. So apart from this vague terminology of the progress that you bring to your constituency via the CDF, etc., now it goes beyond that.
Which is what?
You are now going to hold an assistant position in a ministry.
So?
That's what I said politically. It means that the optics are that you are able to provide more goodies. It will provide a more competitive element, albeit corrosive element, into our politics. Remember, we didn't get rid of these things because they were good and we're getting rid of them. A lot of discussion.
It's the negative side of it. It's looking at what was the downside,
The downside.
of going into parliament. For example, we saw in several parliaments where the president would go and appoint like 60. There's a time when we had almost 60 assistant ministers. That is 60 members of parliament out of 220. 220 parliamentarians, 60 are in the executive.
Yes.
And there's that whole thing of, collective responsibility. So when government comes and it wants to pass a bill, you're an assistant minister, you want to lose your job, no, so vote
Eric,
in this particular
I
direction.
am not
The
particularly...
value for it, I
yes,
don't see it as
I'm not particularly disturbed about the numbers, personally. Make them even 100, okay? That's not what concerns me. The country isn't going to go bankrupt because you've employed 60 more assistant ministers. They won't. The question that comes to my mind is that this thing that they want to achieve, which they're not stating clearly, all right?
Yep.
Will it mean better services for the Wananchi? And that is in doubt.
Yeah, that's seriously
the
in
crux
doubt.
of the matter, and it's in
It
doubt
is
whether
all
it's going to
about
make a
creating
difference.
positions for political
For
leaders.
individuals.
And political
That's it.
leaders. There's one that you missed. Governors want, when they retire, they want to be given pension, they want a saloon car and a 4-wheel drive car.
Do you know
Lovely
the problem
stuff.
here?
Lovely
Do you know the
stuff.
problem here with all these things that they're demanding? They're demanding these things in order to pass this
No,
report.
what I find interesting, why are they limiting themselves? Why don't they each ask for a yacht?
Or private jet at
And
this rate.
I mean, surely,
And 2
while you are
homes.
at it,
Why
while
are you
are
stopping
at
at a saloon car?
a saloon car? Why?
At the county headquarters, a saloon car and a 4-wheel drive car, pension, and then let's add other things. For example, unlimited travel allowance.
Unlimited. Unlimited. Where on the
yeah.
planet is there such an arrangement?
Let's just make it. I mean, you have served for 10 years as a governor, or even for 5. You're not talking about those who have served for 2. As long as you've been voted out,
Do you know these things?
or your
are
tenure has
actually-
come to an end as a
They
governor.
actually are very feasible. They are feasible, but not in the manner that they're being asked for, because this is plunder.
Yeah.
We are actually now being robbed in broad daylight, and they want to legislate
in
the
day
robbery.
broad
They
light.
want
So-
to and that they've even gone
Yes.
as far as saying, look, imagine, this one is so nice, not to be held criminally responsible for loss and wastage. Loss and wastage, so they are...
Under your watch.
Under your watch, there's loss and wastage, but you don't want to be held responsible for it.
Criminal.
Is this not the point where we ask them, even as they're contemplating these wonderful things for themselves, to perhaps take a pause and suck a lemon? Because, in all honesty, how on God's good earth, in this country where poverty is palpable,
It's raining.
you all you want is to be given more and more. You already have more. You still want to be added more when the actual service that you're providing for the people doesn't exist.
It's disgusting.
Apart from just adding to the numbers of the population, there's nothing else.
I'm telling you this.
Why don't they get a good insurance scheme that guarantees they are paid some really hefty salaries?
Yep.
Why don't you
Create
get
a pension scheme.
that guarantees all these things that you want?
Create a pension scheme, join that pension scheme, ensure that while you serve in office, there's money that is coming from the taxpayer towards as a contribution by your employer into that pension scheme. After that is done, then wait for
You can
60.
retire quietly.
This thing doesn't annoy Kenyans.
You
It
know,
doesn't do your body somehow.
You know something? Even when it comes to annoyance, you have to prioritize. because annoyance requires energy. It's what you're going to expend your energy towards. Are you going to look for food,
or you're going to be
waste your
annoyed
time?
with this
That
nonsense?
you put
But
it
you should.
aside and say no, okay. Because it's essentially we're exacerbating a consistency we've seen for a long time. It's just that it's giving us a new face.
We're
So
heading back by
people
this thing
are-
is clawing back on all
People
the
are
gains.
going back. I mean, I thought that they were going to discuss serious things.
Honestly,
Yeah, they discussed. I mean, you don't need to be told who to appoint as your. In fact,
they don't want women. Don't force us.
they
We'll
want-
make the choice.
There was also another conversation where the governors wanted to have the power to hire and fire an assistant,
Deputies.
a
also.
deputy governor.
Deputy
yes,
governor.
Yes,
You-
but let's look at
No,
traffic.
traffic is actually intervening.
27
But anyway,
minutes.
carry on.
27 minutes to 7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, so the Thika Superhighway today is looking pretty good as you're headed from Roy Sambo going into the city. It's a bit slow, but it's approaching the Pangani Tunnel without too much of an issue. All right, on Mombasa Road, yesterday was an absolute mess. There was traffic on Mombasa Road at 4:30 this morning. The expressway and its construction is adding to that traffic, guys. So it's likely to build up to some seriously hectic proportions today. So as you're out and about, as you're planning to go out, know that this is what lies ahead. We're going to take a look at Maimahiu and see if that area is still clogged up today. The sand protesters are still up in arms over certain issues. So for now, it's Mombasa Road and Thika Road that we're looking at. Other areas getting into the CBD and out as well, not so bad. Eastern and southern bypasses without a problem this morning. The sprinkles will come down in some time, so need to take that into consideration and be careful for slippery roads. All right, we'll take a look at Jogo Road and other parts as well in a short while. Spice FMKE, that's how you can talk to us on Twitter or text us on 40127. Let's have a look at where it looks like from your neck of the woods.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, 25 to 7. Let's look at the headlines.
So, 7 CSs and 11 governors, same fellows we've been talking about just a few minutes ago, are among the big fish in Haji's net. The report shows Office of the DPP has filed 53 corruption cases in the last 3 years in an effort to recover 224 billion shillings in taxpayer cash. The 53 cases on corruption allegations involve 7 cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries, 11 governors and senior county officials, 22 directors and chief executive officers, and 7 members of parliament. In its report based on 3 consolidated financial years handed to President Uhuru Kenyatta, DPP Nuruddin Haji said they have filed the cases despite various challenges that require a high level of expertise to prosecute. It is the taxpayer money held in litigation that the prosecution office is legally battling to recover, using a new strategy as it faces off in court with a battery of lawyers hired by the prominent personalities. The cases include former Treasury CS Henry Rotich's 63 billion charges regarding the Kimrare and Arod Dam scandal, while his former sports counterpart Hassan Wario is in court over the 55 million shilling Rio Olympic scandal. Governors whose cases are still pending in court include Mike Sonko, Nairobi, Moses Lenokulal, Samburu, Muthomi Njuki, Tharakanithi, Ali Korane, Garissa, Okoth Obado, Migori, and former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito. So all this money is held up there. Through plea bargaining, the DPP's office recovered the period grabbed land of 2.7 billion, land belonging to the University of Nairobi and Racecourse Primary School. And just looking at the money that's out there, convictions from January 2018 to June 2020, 42% of cases have been concluded. 44 of those have resulted in acquittals, and 13.9 have resulted in withdrawals.
So you're giving like a status report.
Yeah,
This is
status
what I've been
report of what's
doing in the
going
last
on.
3 years since you appointed me, Your Excellency. He handed it over to the president. Didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Sasa, the president told him just focus on concluding these cases.
Yes, he's pushing to say, please, tie up some of these things.
Yeah,
They've been there for too long.
Can you win something? Can you win them at least? Win these cases. It's good.
Can the government also ensure that the monies that have been allocated and budgeted for to this particular department are given to them in totality?
It's interesting. That's one of the things that he asked for, actually, to make sure that, they had all the wherewithal that they needed to go ahead with this work.
He wants more resources, right?
He needs the resources.
Greater support.
Yeah.
Apparently.
No, the support that they have budgeted for, they don't always get the money that they're supposed to get.
Yeah, they're not asking for extra.
For more, no.
They're
it's just
asking for what was in the budget.
Our courts are in a similar position because they also don't get the allocation that is intended and passed for the work they're supposed to do. And yet there's still a demand for them to produce results which can only be produced at the rate that is required if indeed the monies that they're supposed to have are given to them.
In Kenya, bwana. So there's a story on page 12 of The Nation today. Video of Magoha bullying junior sparks outrage. This video went viral. So the CS for Education, Professor George Magoha, had visited a school in, what county is this? He had gone to Langas Primary School in Eldoret. And there was a clip because he's seen visibly angry and wildly gesticulating at the Wasingishu County Director of Education, Dr. Getonga Mbaka, whom he calls a complete fool in the full glare of cameras, teachers, and other officials. He was less than pleased, according to the report, with the untidiness and the general poor state that the school was in. The CS, who's known for his tough talking, accused Dr. Mbaka of not being keen in his work and failure to inspect schools in his jurisdiction. So he's there, he's inspecting this school, he's just made an impromptu visit. He finds things that are looking not good, and then he says, okay, what's happening here? What's happening here? Who's in charge? And then this gentleman comes and says, sir, we have a report. He asks, and who's this? He's told, that is our county director of education, Dr. Mbaka. So Dr. Mbaka goes to says, sir, I have a report, and this is being addressed. So he's asked, now you're talking about a report, and this is something clearly that is stuff that needed to have happened. We have raised these issues before of schools and inspection and whether people who are supposed to be inspecting schools really actually do inspect schools and what should then happen. Anyway, so Professor Magoha says, sasa wewe, nikisema wewe ni mjinga ni uongo. Right? If I say that you're a fool, would it be false? You're talking about a report. I am talking about what is here on the ground. Where, unaweza enda? Can you leave? Get away from this meeting. Wewe ni mjinga kabisa.
Wow.
That particular terminology is given, should we say, an unfair rap. It is assumed that when someone calls you a fool, they're insulting you. It's actually a description. Somebody who acts unwisely, imprudently, is considered a fool. So if you fall in that category, you may be foolish on a daily basis and you don't even know it. However, historically, the term was used for somebody who was a clown, somebody who was often employed by a royal household or nobility to entertain them, right?
That was the fool.
Yeah, historically, that is
right.
not the current meaning.
No.
If you act imprudently, or if you do things that are unwise, you qualify. So, if like me, you've acted unwisely, and I have on many occasions, I have been a fool on many, many occasions. I just didn't think of myself as a fool.
So is that ujinga or is that...
Opumbavu.
Yes. Wewe ni mjinga, wewe ni pumbavu, wewe ni mshenzi.
The tag we have with these words has always been, it is considered to be insulting. And if you look at an African context, there are things that we know are true, but we do not say them. So we find euphemisms for it. Amepungukiwa na fahamu kidogo. Okay? There's a shortage of understanding.
Okay.
When we know very well this person understands things very well, but the decision-making process is clearly not prudent. Okay? So it is the meanings we have attached to it.
Right.
And the context in that these are things that you know to be true, but you do not actually say them openly.
Okay. So what should you... if you were the CS and you were inspecting a school and you're finding that clearly there is dilapidated situation here, and then you realize that the person who's speaking in front of you here is a person in charge of education, inspection, and standards in the entire county, and they're telling you about a report.
The CS was clearly upset.
This person is telling you about... you're telling me about a report. Look, this is it. And you tell me there's a report, we're acting on it.
No, he's clearly upset. Remember, when we talk about things education, we don't talk about Mr. What's his name again, Doctor?
Dr. Mbai.
We never mention them. We go straight for
Gitonga
the
Mbaka.
CS's jugular.
Yep.
We attack, and I'm using the word attack, the CS directly. Now, when we talk about the things that the ministry ought to have done over the years, and we've been talking about it in the show, it's people like Dr. Mbaka who have the function and the duty to ensure that these things are done, whom I can now see don't do what they're supposed to do. But because since it's the Ministry of Education, under the CS for Education, Professor Magoha, we will talk about Professor Magoha. Now, we don't know the sort of heat he feels or the pressure he gets from these matters. So when you go to a school and you find these are the people who are contributing to the stress I'm getting, he ought not to have perhaps referred to him in the perhaps very accurate manner in which he referred to him. But again,
For those who were in the area, it didn't look good. The optics of it. I think the optics of it is now what everybody is.
he
is
shouldn't
talking-
have called him that
He
in
shouldn't
public.
exactly.
That's what they're
But if
saying.
you go to the meat
I
of
have
the, if you go to the meat of the matter, if you go to the meat of the matter, truth be told, if you were to pick it apart, you're asking for. We're here right now looking at whatever it is in that report is not correlating with what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And that has been the issue for long. If you look at this specific,
If
particular
this school-
ministry,
if there was a collapse
a
of a
report-
building in this school and students had died,
and then you come and give a
who
report.
would have faced the heat?
CS,
Yes.
directly.
And why is it that we'd get to that position? It's because all you do is you tell me that there are reports. And report means what? What is your job as the county director of education? What is your job? When there was an issue at the Talent Academy in Nairobi, what did we raise? We talked about people who had not done their job. There ought to have been an inspector who goes to that school and sees, wait a minute, this is not suitable for learning.
Meaning, shut
I
this
have
place down and
absolutely
do
no
sort of-
problem,
yes.
by the way, with the way Professor Magoha reacted. None at all. Kama wewe una behave kama mjinga, just call the person a mjinga. Pumbavu, binadamu ya mavi ya kuku, like the former president would say.
He's quoting directly. Yes.
Binadam. It means what?
Binadamu.
Binadamu ya
human
mavi.
being.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what Mwai Kibaki once said. Binadamu ya mavi ya kuku.
Chicken
Whatever he
pox, just-
meant.
Got it.
Whatever he meant.
He thought about it and figured, okay,
The best I can use to describe you at
let me
this
water
point.
it down a little bit and refer to a smaller animal, chicken
Yeah. Not horse or bull.
or elephant.
You just talk about chicken crap.
The manner in which people behave, and you're holding this much responsibility
Somebody
in your hand.
should do their job.
But look,
They should
it
do their
it
job.
rubbed some people the wrong way. And so people had an entire presser yesterday and said, "Look, we don't like it. Bullying a junior officer who may even have been older,
that-
a junior.
but that's
in
not
some-
bullying.
Junior. Well, this is what the people are saying,
Who
right?
even be older than Professor Magoha.
That's what I'm saying. The fellow could even be older than you. Go to other parts and they'll tell you how you respect your elders, my friend, even if you're in a position of authority work-wise. So he didn't bode well with some people, rubbed them the wrong way and said, look, this is the way he has been behaving. It's not just this one. It just so happens that this one was caught on camera. And we don't like it. And we actually say that
you
it's
know,
time to call
we
for
have
his
established.
resignation.
They didn't like it.
They didn't like it. Don't be
Next.
doing it
Yeah,
again.
we have established it. Now, since we are talking about people who are unhappy, there are others. In case they felt they were alone, they are not alone. Right?
Let's take
It's
just
6
this break and then you do that.
All right, let's do that.
Just a quick break, a very quick one at 14 minutes to 7.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, that's it to 7 o'clock. So who else is unhappy?
Well, page 6, Nation, National News. Degree rule riles Mudama MCAs. When this came into law, people went to court
Yep.
and the application of this law was suspended
To give them time.
to give them time. But then,
Why?
yes,
Because they are the only ones who can rise to this position.
yes,
Okay.
yes, and this ruling, unfortunately, was overtaken by the Election Laws Amendment of 2017. All right? So now it becomes another requirement. But now people are threatening to go to court again on this matter. In my mind, two things come to the fore. One, the value that is placed on the degree, there's logic behind it.
Yep.
And there is the debate of, are you seeking to elect a degree holder, or are you seeking to elect someone who has certain qualities and who you believe have a certain understanding? Why do I say this? There are many people who do not move or ascend that educational ladder, not because they don't have the aptitude, they don't have the means. Some at standard 8, some at Form 4. And then there are individuals who work, get that Form 4 certificate. Some get a certificate post Form 4, then move to diploma, then hopefully move to a degree. Now, I am saying that there are things that individuals do, even to the point where they get that diploma, that needs to be considered. If you're looking for somebody who has shown the ability not to give up, you would look for such a person.
Yep.
But there's a second bit to it. When we talk about looking for leaders in this country, we normally think of men who will do this job. Perhaps we should introduce the gender aspect to it. If you're looking for those qualities in a man and they're not there, why don't you look for women who have those qualities?
True.
Because you may look for the men around you, those who
And you won't
present
find.
themselves, and you certainly won't find it. Why not look for these qualities in women? The argument that they have in my mind is valid. A diploma in my mind is more than adequate to meet the task that is required. Yes.
To get there, to get the job done.
To get the job done.
Because
It's more
what
than
is
adequate.
important is understanding the needs of the people, articulating them before the assembly, and then understanding how laws are made
Yes.
and how you pass those laws.
Yes.
If you understand the process and procedures, and you know that this is what the law says, and this is how then the law should be, good to go. We
Remember
have
for-
parliamentary staff and county assembly staff.
Remember, for the longest time in this country, to be a lawyer, you didn't need to go to what we call law school and get a degree. You didn't need to. You could be an apprentice, and over time, it's like a cumulative
Your
credit.
experience accumulates.
Yes,
to
and then you would eventually sit for that bar,
Yep.
but you didn't get any degree in between, and you're just as good a lawyer as any. If you ever come across court clerks who work for lawyers, you'll be amazed at how knowledgeable those people are.
They are.
Totally amazed. And you'd also understand that these lawyers depend on these people
Yep.
to get work done.
Yep.
The really sharp ones not only write letters, my friend, they even draft documents
They
for you,
draft.
because they've been doing it for the longest time.
They know everything. They know the procedure.
Yes.
They know the ins and outs. Everything.
So if you don't require a degree for these things, it means the degree is actually not necessary.
Not
for these things.
necessary.
Yes.
Some level of further education,
You
however,
do
is
so that the mind is trained and is
Exactly.
capable of grasping certain things. And a diploma does the trick.
which should be the argument that is being had now, which should be the conversation that is being had. Okay, so if it's going to take 3 years to get a university degree, there should be at least a basic minimum that you should achieve. And it should be, you shouldn't be stuck at the degree for degree's sake. But are we looking at some kind of critical learning and understanding comprehension that these folks can go through? Then yes, go the diploma way. Do something.
I would look for aptitude, because that one, you can't fool it.
You can't.
Someone may have stopped the education even at below standard 8. But you talk to that individual, you realize I'm talking.
They have a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, I'm talking to someone who actually has a very serious grasp of things here.
Okay, so Tundu Lissu has fled Tanzania and has gone back to Belgium, where he was in exile before he came and was given the candidature for the election in Tanzania. He was holed up in the German embassy in Tanzania for 8 days, citing threats to his life. He was escorted to the Julius Nyerere International Airport in a convoy of diplomatic vehicles, again by the Germans, who gave him this assistance. He left in the afternoon yesterday aboard an Ethiopian Airlines plane, accompanied by a German embassy official. He's headed for Belgium, where he has a resident card, according to his legal representatives, which are Amsterdam and Partners LLC. He was the Chadema Party presidential candidate in the October 28th elections, and he lost to the incumbent president, John Pombe Magufuli, who was sworn in for a second and constitutionally final term. There's a lot that's happening in terms of a crisis after this election that's taking place. Of course, the National Electoral Commission has dismissed fraud claims. Lisu's wife arrived in Belgium earlier, while their two children, who study in the US, remained there, rather went back there. And many are glad to hear that he's safe. However, there are a number of other Tanzanian officials who are either trying to flee the country, some of them, one of them known for sure, already here in Kenya at the moment. Others who tried to leave Tanzania then were not allowed to do so, with threat of arrest if they tried to leave. And the Tanzanian authorities, there are 4 border share crossings with Kenya that Tanzania has. And it's been said that now all of these then are manned heavily by the Tanzanian authorities, because those who are trying to flee then are not being given an opportunity to do so.
What's the fourth one? I'm thinking of 3.
There's Lunga Lunga, there is Namanga, there is...
There are 4.
There are 4, yeah?
So there's Lunga Lunga, there is Voi for Lily,
That's the
for
one.
Lily.
That's
Namanga.
that is the one I didn't.
Yeah.
Yes.
and then there's the one
Migori.
in Sibania, right? There's also another, there are others along the way, of
You are
course.
referring to the Panya route.
No, a proper one, like at Tarakea in Loitoktok. There's a border crossing, a
I know.
proper
Border crossing with
custom,
all the
you know,
trappings.
yes.
That I'm hearing of today.
Ukienda kupanda mlima Kilimanjaro, you pass through that one.
So you
At
don't
Tarakea.
do the Lunga Lunga thing,
No.
Arusha?
So this is what is currently happening, and there's already, under the Kenya Human Rights Commission, there is the Tanzania Election Watch that is collecting quite a number of these cases right now, and saying that there are issues concerning MPs, former MPs now who fear for their lives in Tanzania at the moment, and they're hoping that this will force the president and the administration to do something and say that, you know, everybody is free to live within the borders of Tanzania regardless of what side they were on. But right now,
I'm
things
sure
are
if you
looking
asked
quite thick.
Magufuli, he'll issue that statement today. Tanzania is a free country. All Tanzanians have a right as citizens of this country to live in this country.
Yeah, he
And
can
to
issue the
live- and
statement,
to
but in
live
this
within
case,
the laws
To live
of this
within the laws
country.
of the country.
sure, he could issue the statement, but in terms of what's being done, it's totally different.
You see, remember, there's always a different side to the story, all right?
Yep.
Those who feel that their lives are in danger will issue one statement.
Yeah.
But then I will ask the question, of all the people who were in the opposition, there were not 10 people, there were not 20, there were very
There are
many
many.
people.
Even the supporters of the opposition. You know, it's not just about the candidates. They also had supporters.
They did.
But anyway, we know how many MPs did Chadema get in this new parliament? Did they get any? It's very interesting to see that mix of parliament and even the county and the wards, right? Big issues here. Let's come back to Kenya because I have a story here I'd like to share. The Directorate of Public Prosecutions has thrown a spanner in the works after rejecting charge sheets for people arrested flouting COVID-19 containment rules in Isiolo, citing a gap in law. So 24 people had been arrested, and when they were being taken to court by the police in Isiolo on Monday, the office of the DPP in the area said, you know what, I can't charge them. The suspects are to be charged for not wearing masks, contrary to Section 6(1)(b) of the Public Health Act and the COVID-19 restrictions of movement of persons. But the ODPP insisted that the gazetted law only applied in the previous hotspot areas, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Mandera. So Isiolo is not in that list. So he's like, if I go to court and I'm saying that they flouted these rules didn't apply to them anyway.
Okay.
So if you're not in Nairobi or Kilifi or Kwale or Mombasa or Mandera, you should not be arrested because of what you're not wearing a mask or not wearing mask contrary to Section 6(1)(b) of the Public Health Act and COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons. No.
What we're saying
However,
is
this
that
DPP
a precedent has been set here.
Yes. But then you ask yourself, the curfew that applies is a nationwide curfew. Unless you say that it wasn't then gazetted, which there would be an issue.
There will be a legal loophole.
And that's because that is the Public Order Act. Public Order Act says curfew. Public Health Act says wash hands,
But the
do
cessation of movement
within
cessation of movement was established within these particular counties that you had mentioned.
Yeah,
The
but then there was a
curfew,
nationwide curfew.
Sure, but the cessation of movement was then lifted in all of these counties, and then the nationwide curfew came into effect.
It was
So
there,
it's across
even,
board.
Even when the cessation of movement
Yeah,
was
the
there.
curfew was still there. So
Curfew
the curfew is
is
across board,
countrywide.
the whole country. It doesn't say specific
Unless
counties.
what the DPP is saying basically is you're using the wrong law. We should use a different piece of legislation or regulation, what has been gazetted, to charge them. Don't come and tell me it's because of public health. Wait. That one does not apply. Maybe the issue is he should just be the one, because he's the one who understands the law, or she, depending
He
on who the
can't
officer
actually tell
is.
them what law to apply. He only deals with what they have brought, what has been brought to him, and says, this is what we need
But
to
as a
do.
prosecutor, he can advise, because he's not the judge. The magistrate is the one who can say, wrong law, sorry, go.
You know, even before this thing got to the papers, surely there were discussions around this. And should his advice not have been sought before these charges were actually proffered? And he, I'm sure, would have at that point said, folks, for this, you need to charge them under this particular law.
Yeah.
Yes, that
not,
one can
Not
go.
what you're telling me.
No.
It sets off a nice debate.
It's an interesting precedent, really.
Nice debate.
Yes, it does. It does.
So, we'll be coming to the top of the hour shortly. And then in the next hour, we have a conversation. And the conversation is about what again?
All right, so we're looking at sustainable ways of doing business in this country. And we're talking to folks from KEPSA and looking at how that will be rolled out moving forward.
Right, indeed. And we'll also be live on KTN Home from 7 to 9. We appreciate you joining us online, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter. We also appreciate that you can log on to our website, spicefm.co.ke, and wherever you are in the country, whether you're in Nairobi or Mombasa or Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, tuned in to Spice FM on your radio. Asante sana for being with us, and keep it right here for more and more conversations. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We live stream this show and we broadcast it every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., having all mature, intelligent conversations about matters that affect us as a country, in the region, and globally. Good morning. It's now coming up to 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, let's look around Donholm this morning. Traffic set to be crazy this because there's an accident there, and two vehicles have hit each other in a major way, and that is affecting traffic already there. Mombasa Road, it's a bumper-to-bumper situation all the way from the SGR, and even beyond that, then going towards General Motors. The flooding situation continues right around Bellevue as you head towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts. You'll then connect to the Huru Highway, where it's jam-packed all the way through to Westlands this morning. Thika Road is not moving too badly right now as you head towards the Pangani Tunnel. However, there is some traffic right around the well, not right around, but mostly on Kiambu Road this morning, heading towards 4 lanes now as you try to join the Thika Superhighway. All right, we'll look at other areas. Jogo Road also looking like a mess right now as you head towards the City Stadium roundabout. Let us know what you see, where you might be stuck. We can offer up an alternative, or at least hear for others how to be safe, okay? Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
2.5 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. As we begin this new hour, CT Muga, as we welcome our audience on KTN Home, who will be with us from now until 9 a.m. Good morning, everybody. So CT Muga has today's proverb.
He who does not clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour.
He who doesn't clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour kabisa.
Not
No, no,
that
no,
sour.
no. This particular proverb was read in English, and you're giving it a Swahili interpretation. It's perfectly all right, but sour is spelled S-A-W-A. I'm referring to S-O-U-R, the one which is not sweet. Okay.
Sour.
Pun intended, of course.
So let's talk about sustainable, inclusive business, all right? The business community is getting into something what they want to call producers' responsibility in the shift towards a circular economy in Kenya. So following the successful development and launch of the extended producer responsibility business model in mid-October by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers in partnership with a sustainable inclusive business under the KEPSA Foundation, which is supported by the Dutch Embassy, the roadmap will provide, a lot of work that they are doing on bringing about extended producer responsibility and the producer responsibility organization that's then going to be formed. And it's basically just talking about how then our business is going to be performing with this. Is organization being at the forefront of shifting into a circular economy. What is a circular economy? What does it mean?
I
Some of
have
these
that
terms,
question
and
as
this is
well.
where the businesses now come in and they say, all right, so we are getting into this new model. We want to be more responsible in the way we do our business. This initiative called the Sustainable Business Initiative, or Sustainable Inclusive Business, is looking at how do we make sure that we are responsible even in our business. There's issues of climate change. There's issues of looking at employee relations. There's issues of looking at how you as a business are behaving, or as a corporate you're conducting yourself. There's the issue of taking care of the environment in which you work. There's the issue, all those coming together then form this whole inclusive, sustainable inclusive business initiative. So when they have the extended producer responsibility, it's to what extent does the producer responsibility go?
What I'm hearing here is that all these standards currently are not being met, or they don't exist. So we either want to create them, and if they do exist in whatever form, we want to revamp them to meet, not just meet, but to be in line with the challenges that we're currently facing. And the major challenge is, of course, the economic downturn that has been brought about by the COVID-19. Now, I am not clear about where we stand where these things are concerned, because to improve on something, there's perhaps a need to understand where are we currently. What is it that requires revamping or improving? And yes, we are getting assistance from people who probably have gone through this and have known how to overcome it. The vital question: what is the twist that is going to ensure that it is tailor-made for the circumstances that we are in, and that it will actually produce the desired results? Those are the questions that come to my mind.
So let's bring in the business side of the country into this conversation. And the two leading organizations that are, business membership organizations that bring in the private sector join us today. Phyllis Wakiaga is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And let's also have a conversation with Amadi Ebeneza. He's a Program Manager for Sustainable Inclusive Business at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Good morning, Phyllis and Amadi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
to Derek.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room. It's great to have you on the show this morning. I'm just going to start straight up with you, Phyllis. What is the extended producer responsibility in a language that all of us can understand? Because you guys know what you're talking about, but Ebu, tell us, what does it mean?
Thank you for that question. The extended producer responsibility is basically saying that a manufacturer's responsibility for their product extends for the entire product life cycle. So basically, when a manufacturer produces a product, his responsibility extends to the post-consumer waste.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey around this started in about the year 2018, when the industry came together around the PET bottle. At that time, it was to see how we can have extended producer responsibility around the PET bottles. I think you know those bottles, the ones where we package water, soft drinks, and other products.
Yep.
So at that time, we formed PETCO, which is a model that borrows heavily from the South African industry for management of PET bottles. So what happens is that the manufacturers who utilize the PET bottles, those who manufacture it, are responsible and really are working to ensure that those bottles are collected, recycled, and reused. So what we are basically trying to do is to move as a country from a linear economy where a lot of our waste ends up in landfills, but utilize instead this waste as a resource and something that can be used in another cycle of production. So the bottles, for example, are reused, they can make pellets, they can be used to make other products. So that way you're having a circular economy as opposed to a linear economy where in the past you take a bottle or a plastic or a metal and throw it away. So you're extending the life cycle of products.
What prompted the business community to come up with this model? I mean, why? What's in it for you? Once you've produced, as you've been doing before, you sell, and then the market then does that, and maybe a new segment of the market is born. Why does a producer of, let's say, plastic have the responsibility of going all the way to collecting it and to finding other uses for it?
The business community and industry is very cognizant of the fact that we live in this environment and we have to contribute to a sustainable environment. So as responsible businesses, what we are doing is trying to ensure we play our part. We create awareness. We provide a platform that creates the opportunity for us to reuse our products so that we minimize the impact and the negative impacts to the economy. So I believe it's the responsibility of all of us as individuals, as businesses, to do that. So that is what prompted it. What is in it for us, therefore, is a better environment for all of us and sustainable business, because at the end of the day, if someone is not doing this, what eventually happens in different countries that you'll see bans of products, you'll see waste in the economy, will affect our ocean. So the impact is quite broad. So businesses are acting as responsible citizens to go the next step and ensure that their waste is properly managed in the environment.
I mean, going to you, Ebenezer, can we see that there is congruence then amongst businesses to say that we know that this is important? Also taking into consideration the fact that it could be businesses leading this initiative, but that the general greater population also is involved in this as well, to a very large extent. How do you intend on bringing in Kenyans into this, basically?
Thank you so much, indeed, for the question. Of course, every business, as Phyllis mentioned, is operating in an environment. What I like to call, it is really down to the 3 P's: people, planet, and profit. So the people that work in the organizations themselves, they have to take care of them. They have to look at the planet, which is the environment, and the bottom line, which is the profit. All of these elements then will define sustainability. So if you talk about sustainability, you're not talking about one part of it. You're talking about the holistic view. And to make it simple, I call it the 3 Ps. Now, businesses, in this sense, then look at avenues to ensure that their products that introduced to the market, it does not, again, negate what has the environmental sustainability. So they like to redesign their products so that they ensure when this product goes to the market, it's able to be recycled. So again, adopting what we call circularity, what Phyllis was mentioning. So the linear economy defines that a product is developed, you use it, and then you dispose of after using that particular product. But within the circular economy, it states that you, first of all, refuse those items that are hazards to the environment. That's by not using them. If you use a product, then you reuse it and then recycle it. There's an element that we call recovery of energy, and lastly, disposal. So the government, again, in its policies, aims to achieve only 5% of waste to be disposed in landfills. So reducing the amount of trash or waste that goes to landfills and adopting circularity.
Is there any organization in Kenya that has attempted or has done what you're actually saying?
Yes, quite a number. Many of our members within KEPSA, Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and Kenya Traditional Manufacturers are doing it. An example that I will give you is Unilever. You'll find that what they're doing is some of their products, their packaging, they have particular products that they're using recycled plastics. This is in collaboration with a company called Mr. Green. I don't know if you've heard of it. So Mr. Green Africa works with informal waste pickers. They actually bring these products to them, and they're able to break it down and then convert it into a product. So these are the elements that we are talking about. Now, circularity does not only look at one sector, which is possibly looking at a product like plastic. It is holistic. When I talk about circularity, it's in all sectors. Let's go into the agricultural sector. We talk about food, nutrition, and security. Again, then we must ensure that the products that we grow, then we reduce waste. Or we kind of, through the process of production, we use the byproducts to generate other products. If I use an example of the water sector, they currently use sludge to develop briquettes and pellets. Yeah, so that's part of circularity in itself. So instead of burning away the residues, you use it again. There are two actually products that you can make from sludge, which is manure, fertilizer, or you can actually develop the briquettes or pellets. So that's energy again, trying to reduce the use of charcoal again. So that again impacts on the element of us talking about we need to reach the 10% coverage of forests in Kenya.
Okay, and Phyllis, are we focusing just on Kenyan companies, or are we also looking at foreign companies? Because we already know that Kenya is a dumping ground for some of these wastes that come from other countries. We know that already, and so that even as Kenyan companies come together to do this, is it taking into consideration what foreign companies might be doing in the country as well?
Yes, what the plan is seeking to do is to set together a producer responsibility organization. So what the organization will do is that it will look at increasing the collection and recycling of these products, also raising awareness on sourcing of products to ensure that the products being sourced are also environmentally friendly. It will also look at the issue of product design and how we develop products for recyclability. So the manufacturers and also importers will have to be part of this, will be members, to ensure that we are achieving those goals together. So in partnership with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, we have signed something called a framework of cooperation, where we monitor how the PRO is going to be implemented. That's the Producer Responsibility Organization, and other commitments around what we are going to do to reduce waste in the environment. So it will not only be for Kenyan companies, it will also be for importers, users, manufacturers, because it's a whole cycle. It's also about how we dispose. It's about the consumer, me and you, at household level, how we separate and segregate our waste.
Right.
So it involves everyone.
Okay. You talked about implementation policy. And I think here is the crux of the matter, because we can say all these things, but in terms of implementation, that's where the rubber meets the road. And how do we make sure that these things will actually come to be? Because I'm looking at examples of other countries. They don't. Some of them don't play about these policies. What you bring in, how you operate when it comes to circular business that you're talking about, it's very clear. And in implementation, nobody plays around with it. And as we are here, we've seen that many times the issue is we might have a beautiful policy, but the implementation is where things seem to stall. So how are we going to make sure, how are you making sure with this alliance of these companies that the implementation will actually occur?
Firstly, I think just to mention that as a country, we are actually quite ahead in terms of the development in this space. We borrowed heavily from the Danish industries when we developed the KEPRI, or the Kenya Producer Responsibility Organization. And when you look at even how far we've gone in terms of setting up the PRO and the speed we've moved with, even some of the developed countries have not done this. But you're right, the rubber hits the road where implementation is concerned. The government has also, in line with this, developed Extended Producer Responsibility Regulations 2020. They are currently undergoing public participation, and when this is done, we'll be able to then have a legal regulatory framework that ensures that they are implemented. So that would be the move. But beyond that, also it's personal responsibility for organizations, for citizens, to rise up to the occasion to ensure that we're also playing our part in implementation of this regulation.
How will this PRO be structured, or how is it being structured? Is it voluntary membership? Is it that every organization that, say, joins CAM or joins KEPSA then automatically becomes a part of PRO?
The PRO initially started as a voluntary initiative. As you heard, we set up the PETCO one in 2018. When the regulations come into place, it will not be voluntary. There are certain waste streams that have been identified in the regulations. And for those waste streams, it will be required that the manufacturers of those products and those value chains have in place a producer responsibility organization. So that is the reason why we have set up that Kenya Producer Responsibility Organization. We have members who have already signed up to it, and then the different waste streams will then be managed. So, for example, the bread manufacturers and the manufacturers of bread packaging are already actively involved. So that's something you're going to see in the waste streams that have been included within the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulation.
Okay, in this organization, does the scope extend to the agricultural sector? Why I ask this question is because in the past few days, in fact, as of last week, there have been issues that have been raised with the eating of the tomatoes and pesticides that are used in tomatoes that can be poisonous. Now, if I extend the argument to other agricultural products, do you have members who also will employ the very same strategies that we are now talking about in the agricultural sector to ensure that whatever is produced from the time, anything that is involved in that chain of production of agricultural goods adhere to these norms?
This responsibility, as we said, is something that's going to extend across industry, and it's going to change the way we do business and the move to responsible, sustainable business and looking at the broader circular economy. So even the agricultural sector cannot be left out of this because, as you've said, there are impacts. And Ebenezer even gave specific examples of how the agricultural sector is part of the circular economy. So you're going to see a lot of shift in terms of businesses being more conscious about the SDGs, about sustainability and their responsibilities in society.
Amadi,
just want to throw a little bit on that particular comment from Phyllis, the question that City Muga asked. I'd like to separate the two, because what Muga was talking about is traceability of products to the farm.
Yes.
So to be able to understand what kind of products were used when this, you talked about the tomatoes were being grown.
Yes.
Is it safe for consumption? So that's the traceability, and that's in the agricultural sector. However, as Phyllis mentioned, circularity extends to all these sectors. She talked about metals, she talked about plastics, she talked about agricultural films. So all that, you'll see that it spreads across all other sectors. So I just wanted to clarify that so that even as our listeners are listening, they're able to understand the difference between traceability, what CT Muga was talking about, and the external producer responsibility regulations.
All right. When we talk about responsibilities, thank you, Amadi. Let me just extend my question. Do you also consider quantities and the sustainability to meet the desired needs of the individuals? Again, with reference to the agricultural sector. Essentially, I'm talking about food security.
Quantities in terms of, sorry?
I'm saying, or rather I am asking, that if we take this argument to the agricultural sector and we talk about production, when we talk about production, you are in essence talking about food security. How then, or does your organization also ensure that food security is included in this back-to-back system that we have been talking about?
Yes, so within the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, we have different, what we call sector, and we have members within those groups that I would like to picture them or with ministries. For example, the Ministry of Agriculture and the sector of agriculture that you're talking about. Now, production comes in hand in terms of, and food security comes in terms of reducing of food loss. So when we are looking at the adoption of technology, as well as looking at the different types of input that the farmers are able to use, in that sense, then it contributes to food nutrition and security. We have been lobbying also for the reduction of taxes on inputs again. So this again touches on sustainability in the agriculture sector. That touches upon the question that you asked on quantities. I think that you're talking about production.
So let's take a break at this point. We're speaking with Amadi Ebeneza. He's a program manager for sustainable inclusive business at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And we're also talking with the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Ms. Phyllis Wakiaga. We are discussing the extended producer responsibility. The members of these two organizations have come together and they want to make sure that they have what they're calling a circular economy instead of a linear economy, where business is responsible from the beginning to the end in terms of following through on the products that you produce and ensuring that what needs to be then recycled or reused, you can also follow through all the way to the end. And this is going to have a lot of benefits in terms of the responsibility of organizations, looking at our climate, looking at the economy as well, and looking at the safety of products and for consumers as well. So it's an interesting conversation. Let's take a break at 25 minutes past 7. We're live on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life.
Okay, showers expected through the day in Nairobi. The high will be 21, currently at 17 degrees and cloudy through most parts of the day. Let's take a look into Nakuru, where it's mostly cloudy at 15. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 13. Also expected light rain. The high today will be 24. In Nyeri, mostly cloudy conditions at 15, highs of 20 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 13, the rain beckoning anytime now. Heavens will open. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 20, going to highs of 27 and lows of 18. Mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Light rain being experienced in Mombasa at the moment, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Malindi, highs of 25 and lows of 16. It's 19 degrees in Kampala, and showers throughout most of the day. They're coming down right now, highs of 24 and lows of 17. Dar es Salaam, light rain at 24, going to highs of 27. And in Johannesburg, it's also raining here. Light showers throughout the morning at 14 degrees. We'll go to highs of 21 and lows of 12. In Lagos, it's mostly cloudy at 25. We'll go to highs of 31 with a chance of rains later. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, it's mostly cloudy at 24 with highs of 33 and lows of 23.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, still bumping into situation on
Spice
many
up.
parts of Mombasa Road today. As you get towards Bellevue, remember that some of those puddles are still there, so approach with caution so you don't get stuck. Don Holmes still giving off those traffic vibes because of that accident that took place. Accident has been cleared away, but the traffic continues, at least for now. In industrial area, we're looking at Lunga Lunga specifically. Around that spot, there seems to be some traffic and a hold up there. Hopefully it will open up soon. Coming out of Westlands, you can use the Red Hill bypass if you get stuck in the traffic that's snaking all the way now towards Westlands. Speaking of that, from Uhuru Highway, then towards the CBD and out towards Westlands, it's a bumper-to-bumper situation. Thika Road as well, as you're trying to get into the CBD, as you approach the Pangani Tunnel, you move a lot slower than you are at the moment. It's going to slow up also as you get towards the Globe Cinema overpass. All right, let us know where you might be stuck just in case. The eastern and southern bypasses can be used to and from Thika Road and Mombasa Road. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're back with the conversation continues right here on Spice FM. In the room this and every morning is Eric Latif, CT Muga Nduoko, and joining us on the line is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Phyllis Wakiaga, and the Program Manager for Sustainable Inclusive Business at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Ebenezer Amadi. We are talking about creating a circular economy and extended producer responsibility, and the organizations that are members of these two associations are committing themselves to make sure that they participate in this in terms of sustainability. And Phyllis, I want to just come to you. When I listen to what then the companies are committing to do, and even in the setting up of the producer responsibility organization, there's going to be a cost element to it, because you're talking about following through the product or the service to the consumer and then seeing how that is then included in the entire sustainability or circularity of the economy. There is a cost element to it. Who's going to bear these costs? Are you committing to bear the cost, or is it going to be passed on to the consumer?
Thank you for that question. There is a cost element to it, and that's why business is coming together to do this jointly, because you can imagine if each company was trying to set up its own producer responsibility. However, when companies come together, when the different stakeholders are working together, all the way from the producers, the manufacturers, I think we'll be able to look at that cost. However, there's also incentives that come from government that support processes like this. For example, if you looked at the budget proposals last year and the outcomes, there was the issue of the income tax incentive that had been given around plastic waste recycling. So it's important that we look at extending that to other waste like glass and metal. So that's important. And also looking at the cost of doing business for the waste stakeholders. That's another way where we can bring down the cost because a lot of the players, especially in the recycling sector, in the informal economy, and they play a crucial role within this value chain. So if we can look at reducing the cost of doing business for them, also the movement of these products from around the country for recycling, helping to also reduce the cost of machinery brought into the country for recycling. So all these initiatives will also be required to bring down the cost of compliance around this area.
I mean, and this is a question for both of you. It seems that there must be a lot of end-user engagement throughout this entire process. And I'm still going to go back to that because you can come as companies and decide that we're going to make sure we can do everything that we can do to make sure that businesses are sustainable then when it comes to waste and things like this. But we still have a very trash dumping heavy culture whereby it's not a priority for people. So how then do you intend to weave between this conclusion to do this, and then the culture of where we still have people who are dumping waste? Or are you saying taking on the full responsibility of no matter where it's dumped, we're going to take that on and still deal with it?
Thank you so much for the question, Deuce. So when you asked the question, I was getting excited to answer the question, and I was reminded of one of my supervisors when I was working for a different organization. She was called Nancy Ndirangu. And if you're in the vehicle and someone throws away a bottle, she will tell the driver to stop, go back, and ask you to go outside the car and pick the bottle and come back with it. So that's part of awareness creation as well. I was just using that as an example. So as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and with the Sustainable Inclusive Business, what we've been doing is to increase awareness of separation of waste at source. There's an initiative that we are doing and we're implementing in Mombasa with the acronym COAST, which in full is creating opportunities and alleviating poverty through sustainable trade. So we have realized in the informal settlements that there is no really a structured way for people to dispose of their trash. So what happens is that the informal waste speakers come together into a group and then collect the trash and drop it anywhere and make a dump site. But the Mombasa county government is working closely with us. They have developed a policy that basically maps out where the the collection recovery centers should be, and then work with the informal waste speakers as well as the larger collectors, so to speak, to transport this trash to the recovery facilities and at the end dump sites. So if you look at the National Waste Management Policy, it actually puts the awareness creation as one of the critical elements that should have a focus on, because increased awareness then contributes to something that is called behavior change through behavior change communication, right? So if you the other time when we were having a discussion about this, I gave you an example on your kitchen, right? You don't have different bins for plastic, paper, and food waste. You just put them all together. And what happens is that it makes it difficult for the recyclers to recover the material when you put it in that way. But if you are aware that you can separate these items, it makes it easy even for recovery, right? And recycling of these products, or reuse for that matter. If you had a packaging or a carrier bag that you use, let's say, for example, like kiondo, and you put it aside, you can reuse it. But if you to use the kiondo and put all the trash inside, including the food waste, then someone will not be motivated to use it to go and do some shopping, right? So that's the kind of change that we want to influence, actually engaging the public in this case.
But when I think about this and I hear you talking about all the things, I'm also getting worried that at some point then business may end up doing the job that the government should be doing. And this is waste management. Where do you draw the line and say that this is a role that the governments, let's say the county governments, should be performing in terms of, waste disposal, waste management? And then at what point does then the private sector come in when it comes to the sustainable inclusive business?
A good question, Eric. So when you read through the what Phyllis was calling the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulation, but in full it's called the Environmental Management Coordination (into brackets Extended Producer Responsibility Regulations 2020), it basically breaks this down and says that this organization shall be established, and then you'll have the private sector becoming members of it, and then contribute an annual fee, which will be calculated in terms of, is your product easy to recover or is it hard to recycle? and how much quantities then do you introduce to the market. So all these factors then will contribute to the fee that the private sector entities will be contributing. Now, the county governments have a role to play in terms of providing a service on collection, transportation, treating, and also disposal of waste. So this is an obligation that is not being pushed to the private sector. The county government will actually should provide this service. I will not say will, because it's dependent on the counties as well and the work the governors do.
Yeah.
So they should provide this service. And you will find that in the regulation it actually says that the extended producer responsibility or the producer responsibility organization will collaborate with the county government. There's also the bit that talks about public-private partnership, them being able to bring in investors. Because waste management is quite capital intensive. It requires huge resources for you to be able to make some impact in the county setting. So each party has a role to play, and it is defined in these regulations and the policy as well. The national government also has a role to play in guiding us in terms of policy development and stating that these are the priority areas for us as a country. There is something that is called adoption of the zero waste, which means that you're supposed to reduce wastage. So it also touches on the agriculture sector when CT was talking about the agriculture sector and reducing food loss so that you're able to increase food security in the country.
When we're talking about the responsibility of the county government, I have to ask, what has your organization done to ensure that they're not only fully cognizant of the role they need to play, but the importance of this role that they are expected to play?
Now, one of the things that we do is having conversations with them. For example, I gave an example of how we are collaborating together with Mombasa County, working closely with the Department of Environment, Energy, Natural Resources. So what happens is that when you're having the discussions with the CEC, we also critically look at what is their role as a county to play and what is our role as the private sector, as well as the programs that we are implementing. And they're very keen, case example of Mombasa County. You can talk about other counties as well. They're very keen on also involving the private sector to come in and invest. So there's an opportunity to invest also in the private sector, right? So in as much as they have this obligation, they have the opportunity to invite in the private sector to invest in the sector. Because again, as I mentioned, sometimes the allocation of budget to the waste management is a bit low compared to other sectors. There is something that the policy, National Sustainable Waste Management Policy looks at and talks about the allocation of resources in this particular sector. It's quite low. So there's only much they can do, the resources that are available. But with the conversation that we have with them, they are happy to include innovations, happy to work with the informal sectors, and also mapping out the dumping sites and trying to invest in recovery centers. So having these conversations with them also helps them to set priorities, right? Because sometimes each county government has their own priority, but when you're having this conversation, they're like, okay, so waste management is also a key thing that we can focus on and try to increase the budget. It's not that it's not a priority, but in a home, if you have your budget,
it's not a pain point. I mean, they don't get this pressure from the people because we have gotten so used to doing their job for them that they don't actually feel that it's their job anymore. And this is where I see the red flags, and I want to direct this question to you, Phyllis. So you have the producer responsibility organization that then will come into force, and every organization will be mandated to become a member of this, where you'll be contributing some money so that you can ensure that there is the circularity, as you're calling it. Then there's the county government, which is, and you're saying with the regulations and the policy, the county government and the national government and their role in waste disposal management. As we've seen in some cases, there has been talk by some county governments of bringing in a private sector player to organize their waste management. So can you imagine a point where there's a private sector that's been mandated by a county government to run its waste management and disposal, and then there's the PBO, the PRO, which is a membership organization, which is also playing in the same sector. Clashes between these two in terms of business and what they're supposed to be doing. How would you deal with those kind of clashes? Or am I not just reading a wrong flag? That's not too red.
Just to mention that, first of all, the county governments, there's a lot of work happening also at CAM level with a number of counties where we have presence, Nairobi, Kiambu, Mombasa, Kisumu and others, and even Nakuru. We are doing a lot in terms of working with the county governments to raise awareness and also to look at the opportunity that is in waste. We have a partnership, for example, with Taka Ni Mali, which is about waste as well. So we are able to coordinate and look at the different youth groups and how they can harness the opportunities around this space of recycling. Yes, I agree with you that with the different players, there's going to be need for serious coordination so that it's clear what role everyone is playing, because I believe the county government has their role to play in terms of collection and coordinating around that space. The national government also has its role to play around the national environmental policies, and the private sector has their role. So everyone will be coming together in the form of a PPP. And in order to make this even clearer, one of the things we need to do is to have a very clear policy and bill. We have the National Sustainable Waste Management Policy and Bill that has been undergoing discussions over a period of time. And it will be important that this is actually passed, because it does what you're saying. It provides clearly what everyone's responsibility will be. And that way we are able to coordinate better and reduce any chances of clashes between the different players within this space. So this bill is something that needs to be prioritized in the policy, because it will provide a very clear outline of what everyone is required to do. And that way you'll then see national government, county governments, the private sector, business community coordinating much better around this space.
So you would say there's definite buy-in from the state, from the government, into this project, into this idea, and is it being taken as on the priority list? Because we know that there's a long list on the priority list. Is it up there in terms of how then they would follow through with the buy-in?
There is buy-in at government level. I won't speak on their behalf to say whether it's a top priority, but it's indicative from the conversations we have with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry that this is something that they are prioritizing so that we have a cleaner and a better environment. So if you look at the fact that they already have a bill, they have the EPR regulations that have quickly been turned around after we worked together with KEPS on the Plastics Action Plan. So within a course of a year, we've seen the EPR regulations come through. So those actions demonstrate that there is a commitment at national government level. Okay. Also with the engagements with counties, you do see that. What we would like to see then is more resources allocated towards this space so that we also are able to build better waste infrastructure for management of solid waste, because that one does require quite a good number of resources allocated. So the priority will also follow when the resources are also allocated towards this.
Amadi, there has been discussions and talks about the effects of plastics on marine life on the planet. And there are those who estimate that something like 100 tons of plastic are in our oceans right around the world. There are even studies that have been done which show that we human beings, we think of the fish alone as consuming or being influenced adversely by the plastics, but human beings, again, it has been studied and shown, also consume microplastics that go to the tune of 39,000 to 52,000 particles per year. Now, if I were to believe these studies, then I would say you have your work cut out for you, don't you?
True.
Okay.
Thank you so much, William, CT. Now, if I was to bring this home, as you mentioned, and bring it to a person who's listening in from Vihiga County, when I was growing up, you would actually see cow eating the packaging of plastic. And at some point, I remember we were trying to discourage the cows to eat the plastic by introducing chili into it and observe the reaction of the cow. So the next time it looked at the plastic, it changed its behavior and decided not to eat this plastic. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, plastic has become quite dangerous for animals if we dispose of it in an improper manner. And if you look at Nairobi and other areas of as they're upstream, then that means that if we dispose it in an improper manner, then the rivers carry these plastics and packages into the Indian Ocean. We have also seen that you find that this fish or other the fish or other in the ocean
Marine.
get entangled, right, with the kind of plastic that are introduced. So it's upon us then to find out how best to dispose of the plastic and make use of it. As we were having a discussion, I think the last time, it's 2 months ago, we said that plastic is actually important to some extent because of the element of us using it to handle, let's say, food. So there's hygiene level to it. We gave an example of sugarcane. So we have seen as well success in implementation of some of the bans that have been introduced to about 80%, if I give an example of the plastic carrier bags. However, we also see that there are some scrupulous businessmen who try to bring in the plastics. So this is a challenge as well. But disposal is a critical thing if we were to look at the sustainability of the environment and taking advantage of the products that we have all at the same time.
Phyllis and Amadi, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us. Phyllis Wakiaga is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and Beneza Amadi is the Program Manager for Sustainable Inclusive Business at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Asanteni sana, and we wish you all the best. I mean, like Siti said, you basically have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Siti, Muga, Eric, and Du. As the wise words of CT Muga, I'll make sure to brush my teeth so that when I take my breakfast, I'll say breakfast is
Well, there you go.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home. These conversations continue in the next hour. We'll also still be live on KTN Home until 9 o'clock. It's now 10 minutes to 8. To see the business community then coming together and taking the lead on this is encouraging. And then seeing the government playing a supporting role is also encouraging. What you would expect now is to see them fast track. For example, Phyllis mentioned that there's a bill that has been in Parliament for quite a while now, and it's important to pass that bill. You're talking about the regulations that would come into place. You're talking about even a review of the waste management and disposal policy at the national level, and seeing then how do we harmonize all these things in this new era that we're living in. So we've banned the use of single-use plastics. We've extended the ban on use of single-use plastics, especially in public places. And then the private sector is saying, all right, so we're also taking up this responsibility. We want to create this circular economy. Do you see a bright light at the end of this tunnel?
Well, I think, look, any step that you take towards something like this must be applauded. In fact, must be encouraged. What I see that is going to be greatly needed is, again, either education and participation by the general public. It is absolutely, you can have this initiative, it is fantastic, and you have government support and buy-in to something like this, but then you have the majority of the people who really are not touching base with why you're doing this in the first place. When we had the ban on single-use plastics, for example, many people were up in arms complaining about the fact that their businesses were affected without really understanding the reason behind why this was done, right? So to say that we're going to go into this new era of doing things, this new era of business, it's a fantastic thing, for sure. But for people to understand and also be part of it, it takes, even for countries whereby you say that they are in this kind of circular, sustainable business, it took a long time also for the people who are the end users in this to be engaged in the process. To the point whereby they can see that they've achieved certain levels of success, people were involved and they bought into the idea as well.
But I think people would be involved. What I look at it is nobody wants to deal with trash. Nobody wants to keep trash in their house. Everybody wants to get rid of the trash. I would imagine, if the government did what it's supposed to do, if it's providing the provision of those bins and clearly labeled, clearly marked bins, and you say this is for this kind of waste, this is for plastic waste, this is for biodegradable waste, people would put it there.
It's been done, by the way, in Nairobi. If you look at Nairobi, even till now.
I live in Nairobi, Ndu.
No, Eric.
And I can tell you that trash from my house does not have any bin that is provided by the county government.
Hold on. There were bins in the city of Nairobi where it said clearly plastic, it said bottle, it said paper. People didn't understand. The things were anywhere you see to dump trash, it was dumped. That's what I'm saying. The bins were put there in terms of education of what they were supposed to be. It wasn't done. And that's what I'm saying. They were there. Even now, you will see that there was overflowing with all kinds of trash in all three sectors.
It goes beyond that. Yeah. It is our attitude and our understanding of trash.
Exactly. That's the thing.
It's not. You can educate people, and if you don't have a mechanism for implementing it, we will still have a problem.
There you go.
You only need to consider how we chuck waste outside the window of vehicles and how we dump them even as we are walking. Just consider.
People just don't want trash in their environment.
Yeah,
that's it.
They are.
But this idea of separating the trash, because you have businesses who are making sure that if you have plastic, it can be used. So the thinking has to change, whereby you think if I throw plastic with paper, it's not going to enable the business community to then be able to separate it and reuse it. That's a whole new level of thinking. People just want trash away from themselves, period.
It's not complicated thinking. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that it's complicated thinking. I think if you had this extended, start from how you you deal with trash. Instead of just giving somebody a black piece of paper bag and say, put your trash here, and then there's a truck that's going to come and collect. If you started labeling like that, people will do it. Because it's very clear. So when you're talking about this is food waste, you put it here. This is plastic waste from plastic bottles and the others, you put it here. Over time, people will do it.
Thank you.
It's just about, it's a behavior change, but that behavior change is not a complicated thing that people will not understand, that people will need to know. It is just showing, lead by example.
Phrase, over time. Because even something like, say, biodegradable, I'm talking about myself.
Yep.
It took me a long time to wean myself out of this habit of throwing things out of the window of a car or just dumping it. It took me a long time. Even within the house that I live in, it took me time to actually get a bin into almost every space so that you have easy access to somewhere where you can throw the waste. It took me time. And I'm saying it took me a very long time. What you're saying, I also saw in Kisumu. There was an organization that sought to teach people how to ensure that they live in a safe environment. The wonderful thing that they did was they involved the community. So what you call taka waste, it wasn't the county or the municipality, no. It was individuals who formed groups within the estates that they lived in, and they are the ones who sort of charge for the work that they did, but they separated the waste. Now, in my mind, it was an excellent way of doing things because these are people who are trained and they knew what to do. And because they're in the community and they're doing it within the communities where they lived, it was easy for that particular system to be bought into. Now, the problem arose here. The work would be done, people would not pay. Now, where I agree with Eric that this is possible, I have seen security being a communal matter where people live, say, in an enclosed or in a community
Yep.
or in an estate. So it is people agree within the community, they come to an understanding, and everyone contributes. It ends up being cheaper for everyone, but you have the security you need. All you need is one example which works to tell you that communal thinking can actually be taken to yet another area, like an environment. It can.
It can actually be done. Just
It
like
can.
you're saying, you mentioned about your home. You don't need to have a dustbin in every part of your
No,
home.
no, 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 no.
But you
no,
also do
don't.
not just throw trash anywhere.
No, you
You
don't.
know where the dustbin is, and you go and put trash in that dustbin. Many of the people who you find littering on the streets is because you have this thing that is now, you don't want to have trash in your car. You don't want to have trash with you. And you don't know exactly where you can throw this trash next. If you knew that there's a bin right there down the road, you would go and put it there. You'd go and dump it there. Look at places that have a clearly marked and labeled trash can. Go to these establishments, these hotels or restaurants at petrol stations. There's a clear labeled trash can there. Do people just throw away trash anywhere? No, they go to that dustbin and they put there.
The other problem which used to arise is they wouldn't be emptied on time. So
That's
the trash
the other
would
problem.
overflow.
So it starts overflowing. It starts
Yes.
creating another
To the
pile
point where it
there.
even covers the dustbin.
The bin
So
itself.
you're not really sure. But the point that you're making is an extremely valid one in this respect. Yeah? Again, it boils down to that issue of you, the individual. I remember the first time I encountered this was a friend of mine when I threw a banana peel out and I was being given a lift. The guy stopped the car. He told me, I'm not going to ask you to pick it up, but if you notice, there's this paper next to you, all right? Throw it in there. And then put it in the back seat.
Bus.
He had a rule. In his vehicle, you did not throw trash away. No, that one I picked up. I would rather you even throw it on the floor of the vehicle. Just throw it there. It can be picked up. At least then you are guaranteed. Now, it's a thinking that it appears difficult because we are fighting against our habits. Because even in the homes that we live in, how many people just throw things on the table or throw things everywhere? So if you take that habit onto something like, say, the environmental strictness or discipline that we are requiring, we are fighting what people are accustomed to. And yet it is something that is extremely doable. But the importance of it and the value that it adds to one's life needs to be understood. People will not fight something that they consider valuable.
No.
Not really.
True. So we're coming to the top of the hour. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, let's talk about marijuana. Should we not legalize growing and use of marijuana in the country? We'll be speaking to somebody who is a marijuana advocate. And we'll also be speaking to a senator who has gone public and say, you know what, we need to have this conversation. This is Senator Ledamo Olekina. So keep it right here for that conversation. We are live on KTN Home, on Spice FM and online. It's now 8 o'clock.
Okay. Within the CBD, there seems to be some traffic this morning. Uhuru Highway, trying to open that up a little bit so that the heavy traffic along there flows smoothly then into the CBD. That means people in other parts of the city are suffering from this because Valley Road is bumper to bumper all the way from Arvingskodek into the CBD. So that's a problem there. Looking at Jogo Road as you get to the City Stadium roundabout, it's moving slowly. Those puddles of water are still there this morning, and then that affects traffic moving forward. Okay, on Mombasa Road, it's still slow from the SGR, then through to General Motors, and then towards Capital Centre. It slows down just a little bit once again through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Coming off Bagadi Way and also coming off Langata Road as you join the Ngong Road or going towards Aerodome, you should be all right. It's moving slowly, but it's moving well. Kiambu Road is a mishmash. It's trying to get in the CBD coming off of Thika Road. The service lanes are not moving too badly, so you can use those this morning. So it looks like normal Tuesday morning traffic in some pockets is a bit painful, but this one we have to sit through and see how it opens up. Find an alternate route, let us know. You can use the eastern and southern bypasses as well. Those are flowing very well this morning, but be careful. It's starting to drizzle in some parts of the city, making the roads a little bit more slippery and visibility will be affected. So take care there. All right? Talk to us on Spice of MKE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
This is the third hour of the Situation Room this morning. It's now 3 minutes after 8 o'clock. We welcome you to this hour and thank you very much for tuning in on Spice FM. If you're in Nairobi, that's 94.4, or Malindi 97.7, or Mombasa 87.9, or you are in Nyeri on 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, Nakuru is 96.0, Kisumu 102.5, or if you're joining us online, Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter, or spicefm.co.ke. We are also live on KTN Home, and we appreciate you for joining us every morning. You'll be with us on KTN Home until 9 o'clock. Let's now talk about marijuana. But before we do that, let's hear today's proverb from CT.
He who does not clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour.
He who doesn't clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so they were just basically teaching basic hygiene. Brush your teeth in the morning. Okay. All right, so Ndu.
Okay, so the talks about the legalization of marijuana, cannabis as it were, have been quite rife over the last few years, and in some cases more potent, pun intended, than previously. It's not just for the usage of it in the country, but it's also the legalization of it for medical purposes, the legalization of the production of it as a potential export product, to be seen that it can be something that would bring in quite a lot of revenue for the country. If we're looking at the region, Rwanda is the latest country to have legalized the production of marijuana within the country, looking at the potential for export. And this was after Uganda had done the same. Tanzania and Kenya have not. Although in terms of production and its ability to produce, Kenya does have the highest numbers in terms of potential. The debate has raged for some time, whether for use medically, because we know that it has been used in many other cases as pain medication for certain diseases, from cancer to gout and things like that. But at the same time, looking at the export potential that cannabis, marijuana holds, is it possible to have that conversation? Before the members of the Senate earlier on this year, the calls for the legalization of it were quite loud to say that, let's go ahead and do this. It's about time. What are we waiting for? Many countries on the continent have already legalized the production of the same and are making quite the pretty penny from its export. So the question is, what is stopping Kenya from going ahead and legalizing the same? And many have linked it to one side. Why are we stopping, or why are we even holding back? Because it could provide quite a lot in terms of revenue. But we also know that there is a moral tie that's linked to this, and that people feel that engaging in drugs and the same is not something that should be encouraged on any level whatsoever. So the debate is raging. There are many people who've been advocating for it over time. And in terms of harm or danger, there are certain harms that you can avoid and use it responsibly. So that's the question. That's the debate. That's what's going on now.
Those countries that have gone ahead and legalized the use of marijuana, what is it that the advocates of marijuana say? What does it do?
It takes you to a happy place. I don't know how we can do it beyond that. But those who have really harped on the usage of it have really come from the medical side, that it can be used for a lot in terms of pain medication. The horror or the agony that a lot of patients who have diseases that bring on a lot of pain have been able to get some kind of release or some kind of reprieve from the pain that they feel. That's been scientifically proven already, that it has those properties that can help. So, the push of that. In another way, it's a recreational drug, which many people would say is not very different from the high that you get from alcohol, for example, or any other kind of drug that you would use. And many say that this one actually is safer than those because it's a herb and it's natural and it doesn't have any other kind of additives to it.
I see. So the conversation has even been taken to the national level, and national leaders have even taken up this conversation now and coming out to speak publicly. Just a couple of months ago, we saw Narok Senator Ledama Olekina record a video and saying that he had visited a farm somewhere, and they were really growing this marijuana for trade and export, and that was a conversation. 5 years ago, the late Kibra MP Ken Okoth had appeared on a show on Citizen TV, and he had even talked about it publicly and said, you know what, we need to have this conversation. Anyway, if we're talking about it just from the pure angle of we can use this as a cash crop, we can have this conversation. Just listen and watch what he said 5 years ago, the late Kibra MP Ken Okoth. Mm-hmm. You're talking about it, cash crop. Just look at it. We have the potential. Who makes the laws in this country? We are the lawmakers. We can go and have that discussion at the national level. There'll be a lot of public participation on this. Why not get to that? Let's expand this conversation and bring in guests this morning. One of them is a man who has actually even petitioned the Senate to have this conversation. His name is Gwada Ogot. He's a teacher, he's an author, he's a marijuana advocate. And we also have a senator from Narok County, Ledama Olekina. Senator Ledama Olekina and Gwada Ogot, good morning and karibuni sana to the Situation Room today.
Good morning, and thanks for hosting me.
Thank you very much, Gwada. You call yourself an advocate of marijuana. Just tell us what that means.
No, I don't call myself that. I think I've been baptized that by the media. I'm an author,
right,
and a teacher of light. Because my book is centered on light.
Okay.
That's the core theme of all the books that I write. But about marijuana, my petition to the Senate in 2018 or 2017 was based on biblical provisions about the use of marijuana. And the Senate was convinced then. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can hear me. And that is when, after the Senate had given us a form of approval, we met with the late Ken Okoth through Honorable NATO and agreed that Ken should push it forward to, into Parliament because he was sitting in. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Honorable Ken passed on. But there are certain issues about marijuana that I must raise. One, marijuana is the world's most profitable crop. And we should ask ourselves why everybody is legalizing so fast, and yet the effort began from here. Mm-hmm. Marijuana is able to transform our national economy. It's able to sort out the doctors and the teachers' salaries. Mm. Marijuana is the only basis for a universal healthcare program. Marijuana will help transform what we call today idle youth into productive distributors and farmers, because it will create a new industry and job opportunities for them. And most of all, with an economy that is able to sustain itself and bring in new input into the tax bracket, but we will then have a better sense of security in our homes courtesy of this legalization. Many people who are in prison today for associating or smoking marijuana are in prison, and yet there is no complainant. There is nobody who has been aggravated. But the law was faulty because it represented the interests of European pharmaceutical firms. The legalization of marijuana will help establish is the basis for Africa's pharmaceutical industry. Marijuana is known to treat up to 700 diseases and is the basis or the foundation of nearly all of the pharmaceutical drugs that are sold in the chemists. And that is why marijuana is banned. Whoever controls marijuana controls the world economy. All currency, all paper currency is made using marijuana notes, marijuana paper, which is tougher than paper made from trees by about probably tensions of about 70. Marijuana is the basis for the apparel industry. All military wars that have been fought, the uniforms that they used are made from marijuana because they last much longer than those made from cotton. All tarpaulin that is used for military trucks is made from marijuana.
So I actually have to ask here, at the risk of sounding facetious, so what isn't made from marijuana?
Marijuana is an industry unto itself.
Yes.
And just last year, while the BBI process was going on, a senior member of the ODM party sent me a summary of a 3-page document telling me to go and present it to the BBI that marijuana was able to repay Kenya's external debt within a period of 4 years. Because 1 acre of marijuana is able to provide about 200,000 shillings per quarter.
So then
Now,
you would
if you
expect
have
you would expect that marijuana would then be one of the top, crops, cash crops in the world.
It is the top cash crop in the world, and that is why certain commercial interests conspired to control it using UN laws. The only people allowed to access marijuana in the whole world are the UN organizations and WHO. Nobody else is allowed to access marijuana because it is the world's most valuable crop.
Okay, let me ask this question because I'm actually ignorant. When you say it's the world's most valuable crop, you've actually given a good account of why you think it is so, and you've also indicated that it's the most valuable cash crop. All right. Valuable in terms of hard cash, valuable in terms of what it can do. What about the side effects? What about the negative aspects of this particular plant? Do they outweigh the good, or do they balance
What
out?
are these? Please give me the details of the negative aspects that you speak about. Be specific.
The possibility of addiction, one.
There is no addiction with marijuana. There is addiction with nicotine. And what treats nicotine addiction is marijuana.
All right.
There is no addiction with marijuana.
Let me ask the question, because actually what I was heading towards was talking of opium, really. Because when we look at opioids, one of the problems that I think has hit the Western world has been addiction to this. And these drugs, unless they're synthetic, are taken directly from a plant that we know as opium, the poppy plant. Now, the harm that has been because of either overdosing or dependency that these drugs actually create. And these drugs are known to work directly on the brain. I would argue that if you're talking about...
I will explain all that.
Sorry?
I can explain what you're asking about the brain. Marijuana has what you call cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are chemical properties that directly influence the senses, thinking, feeling, and that's why marijuana has also been long associated with intellect. In fact, the human brain of all animals and mammals produces cannabinoids. The only plant in the world that produces cannabinoids is marijuana. Now, a lot of the things that you're saying in regard to opium, you realize that the only 2 plants that are banned in the world are marijuana and opium. This is because their properties are what are used as the base for making as a universal basis for all medicinal drug production by the pharmaceutical firm. And in order to sustain this, you have to keep everybody away, ring-fence the product, and create fear around it and tension around it so that you're the only one who can access it.
I think the question emerges when you say all this. The question that comes to mind is, if it's used so widely, if it is required and needed so widely, so why is the production of it then banned so widely? So where the production of it? Where does it go? Why is the production of it banned so widely? So where do these industries source their marijuana from?
You see, marijuana is banned, but marijuana is not uprooted. Marijuana it exists. Marijuana has a market. The biggest market for marijuana is the pharmaceutical firms of the world.
All right.
That's the biggest market.
So
Yes,
we'll
that's
continue the
biggest
conversation.
market.
As we continue the
Yes.
conversation, let's also bring in Senator Ledama Olekina from Narok County. Senator, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you doing?
Salama kabisa. Ai, naona you were wearing what you were dressed in the Senate yesterday. You've decided
This is my normal dress from yesterday.
This is your new look.
The new official dress.
Okay.
All right.
It's good.
Mheshimiwa, what happened to the suits?
Well, I still support the Italian market, but now there's, what do you call it? There's Corona. So I didn't get my new collection for this year.
Oh,
so I might as
voilà.
well go back into my
This
route.
is just as good. Even better.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're supporting.
much better. Thank you.
You're supporting Mama Nalieku and the others who make the beads as well, and that's good for supporting local economy.
Absolutely.
We also understand it's your birthday today. Happy birthday, Ledama.
Thank you very much. I'm a November baby and very lucky. I'm actually a 7th born and 11/11, so I'm quite happy.
Fantastic.
Very good. So, Senator, we saw you. You had also joined in this conversation about legalization of marijuana. You had visited a friend of yours outside the country, and you had gone into their farm, and they have an entire plantation of marijuana. Just tell us about that.
Well, let me start by saying this. I have a beautiful shirt made of marijuana. I have beautiful shoes made of marijuana, and they look really good, you know. And actually, I'm ordering some insulation material for construction, which are made of marijuana. This just re-emphasizes the importance of really trying to demystify this whole talk about how marijuana is bad for you. And marijuana, as we know it, has got almost over 100 chemicals, which can be used really to treat all sorts of diseases. When I was growing up, I suffered from a disease, a mild disease called petit mal epileptic. And I believe some of the medication that I was given that helped me get over that petit mal epileptic was contained certain chemicals which found in marijuana. So this is a testimony that, yes, indeed, medical marijuana do help. Medical marijuana has been proven, or rather marijuana has been proven to contain those chemicals which are used in the pain relief medication. So that's on one angle. On the second angle, we look at hemp, which is still part of marijuana. If, indeed, this country can legalize hemp, and hemp is legal in many countries around the world, we could help reduce our debt. We saw a country like Rwanda, which is a fast-developing country, and to tell you, Rwanda is only the size of Kajiado County. They have legalized marijuana. So we've got to demystify this. And I hear a lot of people saying, oh, there's addiction. Well, there's addiction to alcohol. There's addiction to smoking, addiction to nicotine. So it's really what you do with it and how you control it. And I think we have got to divorce the two. The key most important thing is that we need to understand what benefits medical marijuana has. You know, I mean, even the FDA have approved it to treat two types of epilepsy, because it's one of those things which sometimes when I was growing up, I used to say I was going into space, because I'll be talking to you, Eric, and I'll just blank. Then after 2 seconds, I'll come back to where the conversation was left. So I believe some of the medication that I got had some marijuana in it, and it helped me. Now, when we look at the country I visited Lithuania. I went to get some equipment for an industry that I'm opening in Nairobi. And a friend of mine took me, and we went through a farm which was about 300 acres, which all had hemp, which is still part of the marijuana family. I mean, getting through it, because of some of the chemicals that are contained in marijuana, I got high. And it was a very beautiful sensation, because I'm like, wow, just going through it. But I think that aside, there are indeed so many benefits. And I think it's just about time for us to become more liberal, to look at how is it that we can survive. Because really, I'm a firm believer that we're only poor because we believe that certain things are immoral, And in fact, the people who believe that these things are immoral are the ones who are smoking the weed behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors.
They know
So,
the
I mean,
benefit.
there are a lot of questions that are, I guess it's for both of you, Senator and Gwada as well. If this thing is so wonderful, I'm just hearing all of these positive attributes of it in terms of how it can be an excellent cash crop, take countries out of debt. We've seen that Rwanda has done this because of the potential that it has in terms of revenue, what it can do for your body, how it can help medically. Why is then such huge negative stain put on this if it's so wonderful? All these
Well, there
wonderful
are a
things that
couple of
we've heard. Why? What's the problem?
There are a couple of things that I can tell you. One, really, everyone talks about how Africa is a terrible continent. Yet they are now repping it. If you drive from Botswana, crossing the River Limpopo, going to Zaire, crossing to Livingstone, you will be shocked by the number of trucks carrying copper, which is from that terrible African continent. So that which can be able to alleviate us from poverty and make us to become independent, because now we're not independent. We depend on the West. We depend on the East for even for our salaries. I mean, this thing is really bad. I can tell you, in some cases, even our own staff in Parliament are not paid. Even until now, they have not been paid. We have been paid. That just tells you that we're a broken nation.
Just to add one word.
Yes, brother.
Just to make a small contribution, is that the ban on marijuana in Kenya, there is not a single Kenyan community that petitioned Parliament or any authority to ban marijuana because it was harming their children. There is no single Kenyan community that has come up and said that we do not want to associate with marijuana. There is no single prophet in the world who has condemned marijuana. Everything that we are talking about based on marijuana was delivered to us through the West and through United Nations conventions. And I am saying and stating authoritatively that we as a nation and we as an African continent have sufficient knowledge to advise the West that we have sufficient capacity to grow our crops, we have sufficient capacity to grow and take care of the properties that pertain to our crops, and that we have sufficient capacity to look after ourselves. There is not a single Kenyan community that has gone to any authority and say, ban marijuana. It is Western commercial interests that ban marijuana. And secondly, we cannot talk about the freedom of the human being without talking about the freedom of his crops and his freedom to access them. So when we're talking about this, we have to be very careful.
Let's take a break on that note. And at 26 minutes after 8, we continue the conversation. We'd like to know what you think about this. So you can post your questions and comments on Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. As we continue the conversation with Gwada Ogot, he's a teacher, he's an author, he advocates for the legalization of marijuana. We're also speaking with the Senator for Narok County, Ledama Olekina, who also is saying it's about time we have this conversation about the legalization of marijuana. Let's look at the positive side of things. Let's also look at the negative side of things and see how we can balance them for the benefit of the country and the country's economy. 26 minutes after 8, this is A Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM, KTN Home, and online.
Okay, cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We're going to look at rain showers coming in later. Highs of 21 and lows of 17. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 17 as well. High will be 24 today. It'll be 20 as the high in Nyeri. Mostly cloudy at the moment. And in Eldoret, it's mostly cloudy at 14, going to highs of 22 and lows of 13. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu this morning at 20. We'll see highs of 27 and highs of 26 in Kakamega. 20 at the moment, mostly cloudy conditions and a chance of rain later on. Mombasa, 25 degrees. It's still raining this morning. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy in Malindi at 20 with highs of 25. Raining in Kampala at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 17. Dar es Salaam experiencing rain this morning as well. Highs of 27 and lows of 24. Johannesburg, the rain continues. Highs of 21 and lows of 12 today. It's mostly clear in Lagos at 25. It'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 24. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, it's clear at 23. Highs of 33 and lows of 23. Okay, still looking blocked on many parts of Mombasa Road today. Can't have smooth flowing traffic, neither will you have smooth movement all the way today. You'll have pockets where it's tied up all the way through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. That's what we're seeing right now. Jogo Road also looking crazy. Trying to get them out to the City Stadium roundabout, going towards industrial area or going into the city centre. So that's what we're seeing there on Thika Road as well. Kiambu Road also is messed up right now. 6 lanes. We've graduated from 2 to 4 to 6. Can't say we're not consistent there, can we? Okay, so please be careful as you're approaching certain areas around Jogo Road and also on Mombasa Road. The puddles are still there. We don't know how deep those are, and they've caused some accidents already. Okay, you get stuck somewhere, let us know. Or if you see a situation that's quick unfolding, let us know as well. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text 40127.
So it's 29 minutes to 9. We're having a heightened conversation and debate here this morning on the legalization of marijuana in the country. So we have Senator Ledamo Lekina from Narok County, and we have Gwada Ogot, who is a teacher and author and advocating for the legalization of marijuana in the country and city. So as Gwada was speaking, and he was talking about all the uses of marijuana and all the industries that are using marijuana. And, we even have this conversation of, so where is it grown? And then where do all these industries source the marijuana from? If I'm seeing all these new countries which are now legalizing marijuana now in the last couple of years. So which are the biggest producers of marijuana?
Really?
And was it enough to supply? Because it sounds like marijuana makes everything, even my glasses.
Eric, if marijuana is being grown and in an environment where it was predominantly illegal, and yet we say the pharmaceutical companies source them, it therefore means that they had specific people whose functions were legalized because they were known as suppliers.
Controlled farming, kind of.
Precisely.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
but why for this one product while all the other products in all the other ingredients of marijuana?
Could it then not be
if I remove conspiracy from it and just look at business facts, people who are in business want to ensure that they maximize their profits. And you can't do this by allowing everybody to do what they can easily do. You will influence policy, you will influence laws to ensure. Remember, when you think about bangi, when you think of marijuana, when you think of cannabis sativa, same thing. What you are referring to is something that causes some sort of intoxication, and alcohol will not be far behind from your reference point. There are countries that actually banned the consumption of certain modes of alcohol. We know how that went, okay? Now, a lot of that thinking was also morally based because one took at the adverse effects that these products had on people and they felt, you cannot allow this thing to be legal because it will harm people. People who have had any interaction with cannabis, whether through friends, relatives, or even themselves, will talk about the pleasant aspects of it, but they will also talk about the negative and corrosive aspects of it. Now, that balance, which actually is a product of control, in my mind, is really the discussion, not whether it should be legalized or not.
Can it be controlled to such
Yes.
satisfactory levels
Yes.
that will then allow people to be able to use it
That's
without
the-
the imminent danger
Yes, that the
is
benefits-
attached to it? That the benefits far outweigh the potential
Far,
damages.
far out, yes.
Is it possible to reach such a nexus, Gwada, as you're talking about this? So if we're moving from that conversation of should it be legalized or not, can it be regulated to the point where any dangers, perceived or otherwise, can be controlled to the point whereby the benefits far outweigh any fear on that point? Is
you
it
very
possible?
It is possible. One, a lot of the fears that you speak of are speculative. And that's why I kept asking, I needed some specifics, and I got none.
No.
That's
We didn't
one.
get an opportunity to give you specifics because we allowed
Oh,
you to
okay.
actually explain to us as you are doing now. So please continue explaining, then we will give you
Thank you, sir.
specifics.
Thank you, sir. Earlier on the issue of control, I wrote an article in The Nation about 3 years back, speaking about the need to create a marijuana authority or a marijuana regulatory board in the country. And even in my petition, one of the key hallmarks was that use would be restricted to members of the society above 23 years, because marijuana in itself is powerful and it cannot be left open to everybody. After 23, you are a grown-up and you're able to look after yourself, and you should determine what is good for you, how much of it is good for you, and what you want to put it to use. For the simple reason that the assumption is that when you open it, everybody will go wild and smoke. But when you look at classic cases like Portugal, when after legalization, within the first 3 years, usage of all manner of intoxicants spiked. But after the third year, it went completely low because the interest was gone. And as one of the things I've been told, I've done a lot of radio interviews and trainings on marijuana across the country. The consistent thing that the young people particularly tell me is that to them, it is a way of hitting back at authority, going to smoke it behind the toilet. It's about shafting the system.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about a much bigger thing. Once it's controlled and it's put out there, then the thrill for simple smoking is gone, and then people can start moving into bigger or deeper spheres like economics and research, particularly. The biggest thing that we need to invest in as a nation today in marijuana is in research, because what is unknown to people is that the biggest supplier of marijuana in the world is the nation that calls itself Israel. The biggest supplier of marijuana in the world. And the marijuana they supply is also the most potent in terms of THC. And one of their members of parliament said that this is an area that we want to ring-fence completely because of the benefits that it provides for us. And I'm asking our leadership, just like I did ask the leadership at the Senate when I went there the various times, the decisions that we're making in regard to marijuana, are we making them in the interest of the West or in the interest of Kenya? And particularly because even the word ganja is an anagram of the Luo word njaga, which means just turn around. So we have a lot of roots with it that are local. And it is upon us to start making decisions independently rather than relying on the West to direct how we even use the plants that grow in our backyard.
But
if I cannot determine the plant that I grow in my backyard and its usage, then I am completely abdicating my duty of thinking and responsibility.
Let's answer that question, because I'm sure if this matter came to Parliament, Senator, you'll be required to also hold public participation on this. Looking at the website of the CDC, and I'm just asking, how can marijuana affect your health? Various factors. One of them, let's just look at brain health. marijuana use directly affects the brain, specifically the part of the brain that's responsible for memory, for learning, attention, decision making, coordination, emotions, and reaction time. Another one is on mental health. Marijuana use, especially frequent daily or nearly daily use and use in high doses, can cause disorientation and sometimes cause unpleasant thoughts or feelings of anxiety and paranoia. Users are significantly more likely than non-users to develop temporary psychosis, not knowing what is real, hallucinations, paranoia, and long-lasting mental disorders, including schizophrenia, a type of mental illness where people might see or hear things that are not really there. If you went around the country, Senator, and you asked people, what are the negative effects of marijuana? Some people may mention some of those things that I've just read. What would you tell them?
You know why they would mention those things is because too much of anything is poisonous. And I think it now behooves us who are in the know to be able to dissect and to say, let's separate all these chemicals. And also tell them that, look, even a painkiller, if you are addicted to the painkiller, it will harm your body. So the issue that we will discuss with these people, because I strongly believe, I'm one of the firm believers that we should not be stuck in the old century, or old thinking. We should now start saying, okay, let us look at this thing. Like I said, we separate the two. Number one, hemp for industrial production, construction and, clothing, building material. Let's separate that. Number two, now let's get into the marijuana. Because I can tell you, and maybe Ogwada can also tell you, that in Kenya, people don't really know what part of marijuana to smoke when those ones who are smoking. They really don't know. And, others, will take the leaves of marijuana and smoke the leaves of marijuana. The leaves of marijuana are not smoked. There's a bud which comes out of the marijuana plant, which is the one which is smoked, which is the one which is used to make chocolate, which is the one which is used to make even oil. So really, the first thing is to ensure that you create a lot of civic education. Educate the people on what marijuana plant contains and what it can be used. I believe those are the steps that a country like Rwanda used. They took those steps so that they can, demystify all these issues. Because of even smoking, when you take a cigarette box, you will see warnings: cigarette kills. Alcohol, do not drink and drive. It impairs your ability to drive. So really, the key, most important thing is for us to again look at the benefits. Look at, of course, we can also look at the side effects. We can look at the challenges that are there in terms of, of using marijuana. Yeah. Even your own medicine that you get from your doctor, they can kill you, an overdose. So everything is about control. When we talk about the BBI, right now in the BBI, there is a clause in the Constitution Amendment Bill which has been introduced that talks about citizens' responsibility. It is about time that you become responsible. You start looking at the things that, because no one can control what you do in your life. And like I said, and let me reiterate this, most of those people who are actually now against the legalization of marijuana are the ones smoking it. Let me qualify that. During this period of COVID-19, during this period of, the curfew, I can tell you, most of us leaders are the ones who are floating those COVID rules. When even the pubs were closed, most of us leaders were the ones who are going to, private, clubs and locking the doors and drinking until 3 o'clock in the morning, because when you bring home, when you roll down the window, they say, oh, habari ya mheshimiwa, haya, karibu kwenda. Umetoka mahali gani kazi? So really, let us be honest. And that's why I keep on saying that those who are in the front line against opening the discussion for the legalization of marijuana are people who are living in denial. They're people who do not have the moral authority to even argue that this drug should not be legalized. So those are the challenges that we face, and we must be able to educate our people. We must be able to have answers for people who are dying of cancer. that pain. Yet, in some of the chemicals that are found in marijuana, there's one that can be able to alleviate that pain. What answer will you give that person? What answer will you give to a person like me who suffered petit mal epileptic, or who suffers any other form of epileptic, that drug could be able to help cure? What answer will you give to a person who's got an Alzheimer's disease? Someone who's got some other serious chronic diseases, that, yes, maybe a chemical found in marijuana plant can be able to help that person. So really, I think it's about time that we start encouraging, open conversations. Let's talk about the merits and demerits. Let's talk about things that can be able to help us, move into the next generation. As we know, our life is temporary.
Mheshimiwa, the things you say, I am in full agreement with, because they're in the public domain. The benefits that can be derived from this plant, from opium, from the poppy plant, they are known. Maybe there are others that will be discovered. The subject that I brought in was the matter of control. Yes, you produce it, but then what guarantees will they be that...
Fantastic. Let me get there. In the United States of America, they have your ID. Okay? In your ID, you have a special ID where there are special doctors who allow you to be able to go, use your ID, and in your ID it says allowed to purchase medical marijuana. I have friends who in California would walk into a shop. I cannot get into that shop because I'm not allowed to go into that shop. They will go into that shop. They will buy the marijuana for themselves, for them to be able to use it for medical purposes. Even right now as we speak, there are drugs which are prescription only. There are pain relief medicine which have got some cocaine in them, which are prescription only. No pharmacy can be able to sell you that medicine without a prescription from a doctor who is recognized. So when we talk about control, there are various issues that we can do. I think this is a country that has proven itself over time and time again that it can follow the law.
Sorry, Mheshimiwa, stop there, please. We have proven as a country that we are people who follow the law.
I'll tell you that. Let me qualify that. In majority of us, not the leadership, because when you talk about curfew, when the president said curfew is at 7 p.m., let me tell you, a lot of people, majority of us, respect the law. But a few of us do not respect the law. If you go through the streets, you will find people already at home. Imesemekana curfew starts at 7, I go there. So when we now come, of course, in every society, you will find some people who are dunderheads, people who don't care. They don't give a hoot in hell about, the laws. And those people are normally us, the leaders. I take full responsibility for us, because we are the ones who think we are above the law. But in most cases, an ordinary Kenyan, when they are told you cannot do this, let me speak for my culture. In my culture and also other cultures around my culture that have been assimilated by my culture, when they are told, like we had a war where we had people were fighting in Keyan and Kilgoris constituency, and there are two clans, the Syria and the Wasingishu. And George Natembea, whom I have a lot of respect for, went there and said, the president's curfew is at 7 p.m., my curfew is at 5 p.m. If I see anybody at 5 outside, mutaniona. No one was out there at 5. So of course, if we are determined, if we are able to put and be honest about it.
It's true. By and large, we follow the law. But then, because that's why, by and large, not many people are smoking or using marijuana in the country, if you look at the population. But then there are those that have been caught growing marijuana, using marijuana, when now
transporting
it's illegal, transporting marijuana. The question is, how do you have those proper controls that would ensure that you're not even encouraging the use of marijuana by young people?
And how will you control it
How will you control it?
Let me respond to that. We are talking about, some of the proposals by the BBI is talking about this government promoting a sustainable agriculture. When we're talking about promoting a sustainable agriculture, it's because we realize the importance of agriculture. Now, if we put hemp as part of it, then it is licensed. You now say, unless you've got 300 acres of land, or maybe 100 acres of land, you cannot grow hemp, because then you will only be growing it for your own use. And Gwada will tell you, even hemp, when you smoke it, will still get you high, because it's still marijuana, and it will still make you maybe get all those side effects. So I think we can be able to study. Be honest. Parliament has got committees on agriculture. They don't need to go to they don't need to go to Lithuania, where I went. They can cross to Rwanda, which they can actually even drive to Rwanda. Go to Rwanda and study, see how are those people controlled. These things can be done. I had a long conversation with my party leader yesterday, a couple of days ago, about how an economy can live from a dilapidated one to a modern economy. And he gave me an example of Seoul in South Korea, what the leader of South Korea did. He looked at and said, look, we cannot continue sustaining these outdated, agricultural mechanism. We have to change. And he used a proper mechanism, educated people properly and showed them the benefit of it, put serious controls on it. And now South Korea, looking at the capital of Seoul, is a first world country. So really, these things we are capable of doing it. It's just that we have not tried.
You seem to be implying that South Korea became a first world country because they were freely growing hemp and exporting
No.
it.
No. And I knew you were going to go there. No, what I'm saying is this. You can live from one situation, your one situation, to the better one. South Korea, because of control, lived from a dilapidated society to a modern society. Now, in terms of marijuana, if we introduce it to Kenya, we will now move from that area where people are hiding to an area where people would like to get licenses to be able to grow. And people will come together and say, hey guys, if we can get billions.
South Korea industrialized, and very, very seriously, they changed their work ethics, the hours of work.
Everything.
I think the discussion that I would like to have with Mr. Ogot and yourself is the details of this control, because the benefits that can accrue from this plant are known. It's not that they're not known. We see it, I wouldn't say, and Mr. Ogot has advocated very spiritedly for it, but the controls which will guarantee that the harms that also come with this plant are not just eliminated, but reduced to the complete minimum.
So much so that the benefits outweigh whatever harm then that is present. Do you think that's possible?
My dear brother and sister, we cannot be utopian. We cannot be utopian.
Actually, we must start with utopia, Mheshimiwa. We have to start for aiming for the impossible, so that we can land at the possible.
No. If I make a contribution.
Yes.
A small contribution in regard to a lot of the citations that we make from Western universities. Most of the researches by groups like CDC and other Western organizations are funded by the same pharmaceutical firms that control and exclusively benefit from the dividends of marijuana.
Mr. Ogot, that is not entirely true. A lot of the funding from the CDC actually comes from the American government, not pharmaceutical companies.
Yes, but it is true that most of the researchers that are being, and the American government is one of the biggest beneficiaries of the marijuana ban and also the opium ban, and hence Afghanistan. And two, most of the funds, the researchers that are being done are being funded by the same institutions who wish to have literature as reference points which suits their objectives. So, like you say, when you come back to the issues of control, we must conduct our own independent researchers at home also to support them.
Why haven't we? Why haven't we?
It's because it's illegal.
To conduct research?
No. I have written a book that has a lot of marijuana on it. My first book is about 800 pages. It has about 7-8 pages on marijuana. Completely new ideas on marijuana. But what I'm saying is that it has been impossible really for anybody to move into that. It has been a no-go zone because socially it has been a condemned area. And people have not wished to relate. Yet on the other hand, as Olekina had said, we talked about the BBI. The packaging of the BBI with the reggae directly is to extract some social benefit from the marijuana constituency. But that is not allowed.
Mr. God, you really push limits, don't you?
That is the target. They want to extract some benefit from this marijuana.
Okay.
I don't know how to deal with it directly, so let's call ourselves reggae, you see. But,
All right, we need to wind up. We need to wind up the conversation.
Eric, I know we need to wind up, but I just want to share something with you.
Yeah.
Like this morning, what I'm drinking is actually not tea.
Oh.
It is about 18 different herbs that I take every day. And this, I have to give credit to the person who put it together and created a tea leaf sachet. The governor of Kericho, a professor, in herbal medication, he's combined 18 different types of herbs and put them together, and you can drink them as tea. And let me tell you the effect. I am stronger. I used to get really tired. I'd fall asleep because of the long hours. You take it, cold, does it away. It's actually, it boosts your immune system.
Does it contain marijuana?
Hypothetically, we could be able to do the same for marijuana and only take the part that helps you be able to alleviate pain and help you reduce anxiety, because that's one of our other biggest problems, anxiety. And let me tell you, let me not kid you. Right now, in Parliament, probably 80% of the lawmakers there smoke marijuana. So,
do you have evidence to support this particular perspective that you have, Mheshimiwa?
It's not about an evidence. Let me tell you.
This is what you know.
All right. So if you know, then can I ask you a direct question? Do you also consume marijuana, Mheshimiwa?
It's illegal. Remember the legal.
The problem is one. Let me explain something to you. The problem is one. Not many people in this country can handle the truth. Everything that I say is what most people would want to say, but they do not have the means to do that. So really, I am speaking for a lot of people. And this is my last word, if people wanted this thing to pass without being contested,
the BBI,
the BBI, just say legalize marijuana. You'll see that they will not even care about anything else which will be there. They will say, yeah, that's the way to go.
Let's take a break on that note. Senator, now we've got to go. 4 minutes to 9 o'clock. We'll continue this conversation because we have now to bring in and involve very many comments that are coming in on social media. People would like to participate in this conversation. Actually, we'll ask our guests to stay on so that we can have this conversation again. They can respond to some of these queries that are coming in, very many queries and comments and concerns being raised by various people on our social media platforms. Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram. 4 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Asante sana for joining us. Join us again tomorrow morning. This show is live 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every morning, and you join us on KTN Home 7 to 9. See you again tomorrow, KTN. Very many comments coming in, and we still have Gwada and Ledama on the line, right? As we were taking that break and saying goodbye to our audience on KTN Home, Ledama, you're saying, as far as you're concerned, from where you sit, even if this bill or legalization move was brought to Parliament, and if your fellow lawmakers decided to be truthful and stop hiding behind a certain veneer, then they'd go ahead and say yes, because they know the benefits of this.
Absolutely. But for now, they cannot do that. Because we politicians are hypocrites. We want to tell the church that we are the saints, so please, the church controls this country. So if you go against the church, you will not get votes. So we cannot be able to come out openly. In fact, you'll see some people standing out and saying, no, this is illegal, this is immoral, will destroy our culture.
And they had a puff a few minutes ago.
What culture? And then it was not until yesterday when I decided to go against the norms, the British colonial mentality of wearing a suit and tie, and I wore my traditional, dress clad, that my speaker, who I have a lot of respect for, and I want to thank him for respecting the Constitution and his own speaker's rule, made a landmark ruling and allowed that anyone to be able to come in dressed the way they want traditionally. You know, that is the kind of leadership we want. And I thank Speaker Lusaka for seeing that. So really, when we talk about culture, let us look at the diversity of these cultures. If you go to Kisii and you tell somebody Nyasore is bad, and they probably grew up smoking, they'll be like, what are you talking about? So really, let us accept the fact that we are not honest enough. We politicians will not be brave enough to come up and
say the truth.
Let us support this.
Senator Ngwada, please stay with us on the line for a couple more minutes so that as we take a look at traffic at the top of the hour, we will now read some of the questions and comments and then invite our callers as well to ask questions and comments. And maybe you can field those because this is a big conversation. As you can imagine, it is making everybody high with, a lot of energy and questions and concerns that they'd like to raise. So stay on the line. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, 0719-012-600. Should we or should we not legalize marijuana in Kenya? It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, it's raining in most parts of Nairobi. It's coming down in sheets. Many of our streets that we see this morning. It's also raining in other parts of the country. Looking at Nakuru specifically, there's some traffic on that highway getting into Nakuru town, coming from that stretch. And it's held up there for some reason. Don't know why exactly. But that is a bumper-to-bumper situation. Okay, back here in this neck of the woods, Mombasa Road still moving very slowly. Fares have gone up because of the rain, but it's coming down. So Mombasa Road is moving a lot slower, as is Thika Road. Getting into the CBD also is going to be a tricky affair because Uhuru Highway, all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through to Westlands, is jam-packed. So this is that morning, the one you were thinking of. It's today. I don't know what we can do beyond keep you company at this point. But if you get stuck somewhere, let us know. We find alternatives, okay? Spice FM KE on Twitter or 40127 via text.
How are you doing? Thank you very much for joining us and keeping it on Spice FM. Wherever you are tuned in, whether you're listening to us on radio, whether you're following us on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, or spicefm.co.ke. We're continuing the conversation, and we even have a poll running on Twitter, which is asking, should we legalize marijuana in the country? That is what we are asking on Twitter this morning. And that's our question, which is, should marijuana be legalized in Kenya? Yes or no? Just go in there, participate in this poll. As we start the hour, C.T. Muga, give us the proverbial proverb.
Well, let me give you the proverbial proverb saying, he who does not clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour.
All right. Okay, so let's start off with the many comments that are coming in on social media. Ndu?
All right, so Bernard Kiplagat says, I don't understand this fuss about weed. Alcohol and cigarettes are way more harmful than weed. How many families fail, accidents, incapacity, etc. from drunkenness? Martin Zion says, you need to legalize ganja. Mike Kiburu, a very dangerous plant it is, has more side effects, including the brain. has more side effects, including on the brain. Martin Nganga says, legalize it, but partaking of it should be regulated. We should do as other cannabis exporting countries. We need to change our living standards. Kelvin Waroi says, weed made 2 of my friends totally insane, mad, very mad, negative. The government should legalize, but control and tax it. Ian Kiprop says, absolutely legalize it. And then we're looking at Vincent Odor, who says, ganja should be legalized since it has several favorable effects medically, unlike other drugs, and it should also be made clear that its legalization does not mean using it in its natural state. Otieno Japi says, we only need to change our perception of marijuana, but the plant in my motherland is smoked to babies for the cure of measles. Motherland. I guess
to babies.
Smoked to babies. I guess it has medicinal properties, though controlling its consumption is the key point to worry about. Dun, dun, dun,
What are people doing in this country?
Let's hear one more, interestingly, from Atieno Germain. Really, it should be decriminalized. In the USA, in the recent election, 4 more states decriminalized it, making a total of 15 states where it is now illegal. The decriminalization of it is one thing that's bringing a lot of comments here as well. Why
decriminalization?
Yes.
So it's not legalization, it's decriminalization.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Wandia also says on Twitter, it doesn't need to be legalized, it just needs to be decriminalized, removed from the law books. Let the legislature stop micromanaging us. Ronnie Reagan says, our country is already bleeding. The youth are battling with depression. How then can we legalize marijuana? And Walter says it should be legalized and regulated because most countries have done so, introducing a tax revenue that will be used for community reinvestment, job training, youth programs, drug treatment programs. I support its legalization. So let's start with you, Senator. What is this difference between decriminalization and legalization?
Well, in the way I understand it is that, first of all, this aspect of if you're asking me in that way, it assumes that the issue of it being legal or being illegal has never been dealt with, such that when you're found with it, it is considered as if it's a criminal issue. So I think the correct question to ask is has it ever been discussed whether is it illegal? And if it is illegal, then it has been made. Then anything which is illegal, it is criminal.
Yep.
Because if you are told do not kill, if you kill, that's a criminal offense.
Yep.
You know. So the issue is this: we must first of all accept the fact that we can have this conversation on marijuana, accept to legalize it. Once it is legalized, then of course there will be no any discussion about decriminalizing it, because it will be something which will be accepted. Anything which is criminal is something which is not accepted by the norms of our culture.
Gwada, coming to you now. This thing has come through that, alcohol and other hard drugs, and we're looking at things like heroin and cocaine and things like that, and the effects that they would have on the human system are actually quite detrimental, right? And they're saying, people are also saying, we've heard even this morning from some of the comments that also the effects then on marijuana, on the brain and other parts of the body, even from what Eric had read earlier, is that they could be just as detrimental. Is that the case? And if so, if we have been able to legalize the intake of alcohol, for example, or of other drugs, why then would it be so? I'm still on that. Why would it be so difficult? Apart from these issues of huge, big pharma and such, why would it be so difficult then to legalize marijuana for use?
Thank you very much. I'd like to say that most of the issues that were raised, that were cited by Eric over the CDC, are overhyped, and it's like taking 5 accidents and saying that there's a crisis in the city. If you took 100 drivers into the city who do not know how to drive and you gave them cars, they would cause crashes. If you took 100 drivers who can drive, they will drive and go home. And that brings it back to a point that had been raised earlier by my former schoolmate and classmate, Senator Olekina, that we need civic education. Because Olekina was my classmate at Kakamega High School, by the way.
No, that's my brother. No, that's my other brother.
Okay.
I'm younger. That's Koitamet.
Oh, Koitamet, yes. That's Koitamet.
All right.
Okay.
7 years younger.
Now, okay. Now, if we go to that research that we're talking about, the researchers, they're overhyped. But what is most important is that all the rules and regulations regarding marijuana, none of them has a local origin. Not Kenyan, not the Nile Valley, and not African. They're all from Europe. So Europe is working in this interest. And it's important, therefore, that we, as an African continent and as a Kenyan nation, must craft laws that work in our interest. It is in their interest that marijuana is banned across the world so that they exploit maximum profit from it. And that's the same profit that we're saying, no, we can grow it here, maximize the profit, and we're responsible enough to look after the plant and its product. And there is sufficient evidence to show that marijuana can work to the contrary.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Another thing you talked about was research. And a lot of the things that we see in the world, however you want to look at it, we're talking about in different countries, whether you look at same-sex marriage in the United States or in other countries, people had done their research alongside the time when it was still illegal. And by the time they were able then to present and the arguments became so rigorous, they had already done the back end work that was needed to present in terms of an argument. And then, so now the question is, these conversations are happening, they're robust in nature at the moment. Is it not possible for the work to continue? So even when the conversation now graduates to the point whereby these things are actually being considered, because I don't think it's at the consideration stage right now, it's still being shunned, right? At the point where it is being considered, then all of this information being brought out in a manner that people would understand, isn't it the prudent thing to continue doing even now?
It is true, and you're spot on. There has to be some continued effort towards that end. But what has happened most is the first 3 years when we began this process, we were first dealing with perception and separating fact from fiction, which worked perfectly. And now we're able to have this discussion. Senator Olekina is able to tell you that 80% of parliamentarians use marijuana. But
he doesn't have evidence to support that particular perspective.
He's a member of parliament. Yeah, true, he doesn't have evidence, but he mentioned it. He has also told you that the BBI is reliant upon marijuana to go through. So those things show you the importance of what we are talking about. And the kind of substance around marijuana is that the envisaged national revolution that we are talking about in terms of moving from one stage to another stage of life is directly dependent on the legalization of marijuana. There's no question about it, because marijuana will impact every single industry and every single sector of this country. And most importantly, marijuana is able to bring us more income than coffee, cotton, sugarcane, pyrethrum put together our 7 biggest products in terms of agricultural produce. Marijuana alone is able to give us more income than all of those put together, and within shorter time frame.
Be that as it may, how then do you propose to move the conversation from just happening as a conversation for conversation's sake to a serious conversation that leads up to a bill that then decriminalizes marijuana, that is taken to Parliament, that is debated in Parliament, that goes through public participation, that then is passed and approved by Parliament? How do we move from this point?
What is important is, one, why I wanted to...
Go ahead, and then we shall hear from the Senator as we wind up the conversation.
The trigger of the marijuana debate in Kenya was a formal process that I instituted through the Senate, and there is a formal basis to it. Now, if the Senate can make a formal response to the petition that I had put in the first place, and then from there, we are able then to do a bit of public participation or civic education, come up with a final document and send it as a draft bill to Parliament. Because there's already a basis in the Senate. And then after that, we move on to Parliament, because there are certain salient issues that we wanted included. Because marijuana is the world's most profitable crop, it must be grown exclusively by Kenyans. You cannot grow tomatoes in my backyard and get the proceeds from them. This is the world's most profitable crop. It must be exclusively grown and farmed by Kenyans, and we export it thereafter. That is step one. That alone will cause such a marijuana legalization will, instead of causing an rural to urban migration, we will instead have an urban to rural migration, and it will decongest the cities, ease life in the cities, but at the same time uplift the levels of rural life, because there will be sustainable income through marijuana at the local level.
So, and as we bring in Senator, so Gwada has already filed his petition formally before the Senate. What is the response that's going to be, how will you go about getting down a response to Gwada? And then how can this conversation move to a point where it's formally being discussed as a bill in Parliament?
I think, let me put it this way first. The Constitution allows anyone to petition Parliament on any matter. But I think normally what happens is that the committee will carry out, their investigations on the petition. They will call Gwada to come and present. They will carry out public participation. And then after that, they will table a report in the House, and they'll give them their response. And that issue will end there. The issue really is we need to be able to, first of all, ensure that we educate the legislators on the importance of this subject. Once they are educated, let's get the buy-in. It is like when you're dealing with the issue of politics, you've got to get the political goodwill. Once you have that buy-in, then you're sure that once the matter comes in, not as a motion, what really ought to be developed, because Parliament pronounces itself through motions, bills, But in most cases, motions, sometimes they are adhered to, sometimes they are not. And you really don't have an implementation mechanism. What is important is that get a buy-in. Once you get a buy-in, then get someone to sponsor a bill. Let that bill be sponsored. You have 24 delegations that will be able to pass. So once that has been passed by the 24 delegations, then you can start doing a lot of lobbying in the National Assembly. I don't know how many people have to pass the bill in the National Assembly, but in terms of the Senate, there's got to be 24 delegations. So once you have the 24 delegations, move into to the National Assembly, lobby, ensure that you have got a lot of buy-in, and then from there, because during that process, once the bill has been published, of course there'll be an issue of public participation. The Committee on Agriculture, or the Committee on Health. In fact, I sit in the Health Committee. I sit in the Health Committee. But you might actually make up a case where you want the two committees to come together because of the agricultural benefit. And of course, the health benefit. So once you have the buy-in and it is co-sponsored by the two committees, then of course you're home and dry. But the key, most important thing, which I need to remind Gwada, is that we are living in denial. We are hypocrites. We're smoking weed, but we go to church and say, "Oh, it's illegal." Maybe because we enjoy the benefit and we don't want anybody else to enjoy the benefit. So you need to find a way to be able to pass, beyond that, such that it is not discussed. Once that issue, the public is aware of the benefit, and also we've got the ability to control. Maybe you might even suggest that, we had that Golana Colado irrigation scheme project that was said to be for maize. I've never seen the maize from Golana Colado. But you can actually say, I've got 3 farmers who have got 1,000 acres. It's all fenced, electric fence. It is far away from everybody else. It is highly controlled. You can even give the Ministry of Health access to the farm with cameras, using technology, and say, let us try there and see how well these things work. If it does work there, then we can slowly roll it out to other parts of the country. So you just have to be clever in a way that people will see the benefit and they will not focus on the negative.
On the negative side.
On the negative side. Yes.
Senator, thank you very much for joining us today. Senator Lidamo Olekina, once again, happy birthday to you. And Gwada Ogot, teacher and author and advocating for the legalization of marijuana. Asanteni sana, gentlemen, for speaking to us today.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. 18 minutes after 9. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the weather, and then we'll bring in a Google expert. Remember, we've been having conversations on Google, how we can help you get your business online, get your business more visibility in these times of COVID-19. Take all avenues that you can to make sure that your business thrives. Good morning.
This is the Situation.
Okay, we're looking at a cloudy day in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 21 today and lows of 17. The rain is coming back in sheets in some parts. Mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's also mostly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 20 and lows of 12. Eldoret is mostly cloudy with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Sunny conditions now in Kisumu at 21. The highs will be 27 and lows of 18. It's also sunny in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 15. 28 degrees in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Partly sunny in Malindi, 21 at the moment, highs of 25 and lows of 16. Kampala is experiencing rain this morning, highs of 24 and lows of 17. Dar es Salaam with some rain. It'll come back to sunny conditions later with highs of 27 and lows of 25. 15 degrees and rainy conditions in Johannesburg at the moment, highs of 21 and lows of 12. Lagos is clear at 25. We'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 24. Where it is in Kinshasa at the moment. Sunny conditions, however, highs of 33 and lows of 24. Beijing is sunny at 14 going into evening, 17 the high and lows of 3. And it's cloudy in Paris at 12, highs of 14 and lows of 10. In London, 12 degrees, mostly sunny at the moment, highs of 14 and lows of 10. And finally, for now, New York is clear at 18, highs of 22 and lows of 11.
Twenty-two minutes after 9, the conversations continue. We're talking about how you can grow your business, and we've partnered with Google Africa, Google actually, just to help you grow your business by looking at the opportunities that you can tap into. Very many tools that Google has, and many of them are free for local SMEs. You can tap into and be able to get your business more visibility, be able to get your business online. g.co/Grow Africa. We have the expert from Google, Rosemary Momanyu-Apio. She's the SME lead for East Africa at Google. Good morning, Rosemary.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
We are okay. We are good. Oh. We're fine, Rosemary. We've been having a conversation about marijuana and legalization of marijuana.
Yes.
And we apologize for bringing you into this conversation a bit late. We usually start with a Google conversation at 9 o'clock.
Yes.
We're looking at other high-end businesses.
Yes, not a problem. I was following the conversation, so I understand the delay.
All right. So, as we also sample some comments and questions that keep coming in on the platforms about getting your business online, what would you like to tell us about today?
Yeah, today I was hopeful that I can be able to share with you a deep dive onto one of the tools, Marketing Kit.
Right.
Allow me just to allow John to connect us on the screen here. I hope you can see it in a few minutes.
All right.
Okay. So just a reminder, we're going to be spending some time going through Marketing Kit. And I don't know if you can actually see my screen.
Yes.
Super, right. So remember, we spent some time going through this hub yesterday. The g.co/Grow Africa is one way to get to here, or just typing in Rise Up Africa and you'll be able to see this information. So just maximize this screen here. And again, what I'm doing is I'm focusing on the tab that aligns on the business needs. And the piece I'm going to focus on today is around getting customers as an SME. And the tool I'll highlight today is Marketing Kit. So I hope you can see the screen that I'm on right now. Great. So again, Marketing Kit is a tool that's available to any SME anywhere in the world, and now available to SMEs in Kenya. Normally, an SME would be required to go ahead and either hire a creative agency to help them create for themselves these types of assets, which would then be costly. But in this case, we're availing this kit for free. The requirement that an SME will require to be able to use this kit as a starting space is a business profile. So step one is you must have a business profile because it leans and gets information from your business profile. So I'll just click on Learn More, and it takes me to the actual Marketing Kit. As you can see here, it talks about free stickers, posters, social posts, and more for your business profile on Google. So step one, I'm going to do a quick demo highlighting, in this case, Wangare's business profile. You all met Wangare, so you know what she's selling. And her profile is called New Start Organic. So as I begin to type it up, it shows up all the New Start types of names that show up in the area. So I'll select this one because that's the one we have in Kenya. I click on that option, and then it takes me to this page that helps me understand a little bit more about how this kit is used. So it highlights, in this case, the various options available to an SME and gives you a high-level demo here on the right on how you can be able to use this tool to create posters or stickers for yourself. So in this case, what I will do is I'll scroll down, and so there are three options that I can be able to select posters for: business updates, or reopening information, or asking for support from my customers. So let's just click the first one, business update. So what it does is it gives me a chance to be able to select the kind of background I want for my poster or my flyer. So I can select this if I want that blue with the lines, if I want this bluish with the yellow. So you see it changing behind the scenes, right? The background of the artworks, right? Then I can, in this case, change the message if I want to focus on, let's just say, I'm not available to be shopped online. I click shop online. And what it does there, it allows me to, it changes the copy on the poster. So at this point, I can do two things. I could either download this poster and print it and then post it on my physical shop, or I can share it on my social platforms. I click in share it here, and I'll be able to get an option to then share it on whether it's on Facebook, on Instagram, but it allows an SME to be able to create for themselves custom messages. If I want to, in this case, ask for support, for example, I want to be able to help SMEs be able to offer, give me reviews, or I want to highlight the fact that I want people to support small businesses, I'll just click on support at the top here. I can come back here and change the background artworks. And then I can change the message if I want here. And then I can either download the materials or share it on my social platform. So it's a very simple tool that allows for flexibility for SME to be able to create posters for themselves that they could either print and post on their physical shop, or they can share virtually on their social media platforms. So
for the benefit of those who are not seeing the screen, basically what Rosemary is showing us here is this tool can help you even just create simple graphics. And this is, you create a poster,
Correct.
you create like stickers. You just, because many people would then think, okay, if I wanted to develop something, I have to look for a designer, and then the designer will charge me
Exactly.
something. So this is basically a simple way of making your own graphic design of a communication that you want to do for your business.
Correct. That's a very a good summary, Eric. Spot on. So it's a graphic designer kit that is free, that's available to you to either print as a hard copy or share on social media as a soft copy.
Okay.
Right. So that's an example of one of the free tools that are available on the platform. So if I can just go back a little bit more, and then I don't know if we have time, but I could talk us through high level on Market Finder, which we can go that deeper into as well tomorrow.
Okay.
But again, this tool is really customized to help an SME be able to export their products out of the current country. I just wasn't sure how much time we have left. I know we're a little bit off schedule today, but do we have time, or should I park this for tomorrow?
we can do a top level view look at this.
Top level?
Yep.
Great, yeah, great. So if I just click on Learn More on Market Finder, it takes me through, again, a landing page. Now here, I just need to have a physical presence that is online. I need to have a website or a business profile. Either of them will be able to work.
Okay.
And what this tool does, it allows an SME to be able to decide for themselves where they want to go to. So I would just go through the top line right now, that we can do a deep dive tomorrow when we have a little bit more time. But in this case, you'd enter in, so the website to get here is on the Think with Google site, and you click on Market Finder. Or you can come through our Rise Up website and Get Customers, and you'll scroll down and you'll see the option to learn more about Market Finder. So just as the name says, it helps you find a market for your product. So you enter in your website here, business profile, and as I'll go through tomorrow in depth, but it walks you through step by step. It goes through your website, picks what the main keywords are that are on your website, and then we'll be able to highlight to you which markets have similar keywords that you currently are selling. So in Wangare's case, we'll do a demo with her product. You'll see that she's selling, in this case, organic soap, and it'll provide to us which markets currently are high in those keywords, the top 3, and walk her through the options on how to go from Kenya to, for example, the USA or to Germany. We'll see tomorrow what the options are, and then how to go about to export her products from point A to point B. So just pause there and see if there are any questions, and then we can take it from there tomorrow.
So actually, let's encourage very many questions to come in. Do you have any that somebody was asking something? So we'll encourage everybody to would like to understand more about what we are learning now. This marketing kit, the Market Finder. Just go on to g.co/Grow Africa. That's g.co/Grow Africa. And if you'd like more support, in fact, in just getting your business online, so Google has partnered with a company called Africa 118. And they are then able to set you up, set your profile up. They can even do this training with you on what you can do to get your business online, just the basic training, and walk you through it. What you need to do is just do google.africa118.co.ke. That's google.africa118.co.ke. You'll find their contact there. You'll be able to contact them. They'll call you within a very short time. They'll ask you a couple of questions of what they require, the information that they require, which is basic: your business, your location, your telephone number, your operating hours, and then they can help you set it up, and they'll also help you then to learn a lot more of what we are discussing. You want to see what we've been talking about with Rosemary the last couple of weeks, go to our YouTube channel. This is Spice of MKE, and then you'll be able to find all the episodes of what we've been discussing. So let's talk to you again tomorrow, Rosemary, and thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, and have a good day.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic, and then we continue the conversations right here.
Okay, it's raining in some parts still in Nairobi. We still see this heavy traffic trying to get into the city centre from Uhuru Highway, that's at Nyayo Stadium, through to Westlands. There, it's really heavy, moving very slowly this morning. Other parts seem to be dying down. It's not so bad on Mombasa Road. Inbound, however, there seems to be a problem. Jam along Outer Ring Road versus Jogo Road. Not versus, but in addition to Jogo Road. So that looks like it's going to be there for some time as well. The rain coming down also doesn't help matters per se. So likely to see an inching along of traffic throughout today. So it looks like now, unless something major happens, I think we're going to see it like this for some time now. Spice of MKE in case it does on Twitter or 40127 via text.
So, due to public demand and great public interest, let's continue this conversation. Should we legalize marijuana in Kenya or should we not? Very many comments on social media, and we want to take your calls right now. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Should we legalize marijuana in Kenya?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, quite a lot coming in. Kevin Micheka says, I agree this can be done. After all, we should worry more about the side effects of substances like sugar than one's imagined. Looking at, some of these other lifestyle diseases. Properly regulated weed farming is $1 trillion business. Smoke is bad, but not the weed. Eduardo says, there's a bill gathering dust in Parliament drafted by the late Honourable Okoth, and nobody paid attention to that. And perhaps if that bill would have been given a little bit more attention, we wouldn't still be stuck where we are now. Becky says, legalize it and set up structures to tax it at 50%. Then remove VAT. Income tax should be 10% so that you're able to gain something from this as well. Mutende Westwa says, as long as it's regulated, there will be no problem. Peter Mboro says, no, I don't support it because it will be misused.
So if we start by legalizing marijuana, then where do we stop?
I hear you saying that you're opening the door and then you're letting all the vermin in as well.
Then those who will actually counter it and ask, but alcohol consumption is legal.
Yeah.
How have we kept lid on those particular
How
ones?
have you? Alcohol is ruining families. Alcohol is killing people because people drink, get behind the wheel. By the time they're on the road, have no idea what's going on. People are killed because of alcohol poisoning. Families are ruined. Livelihoods lost because of alcohol. And it's legal in this country, n'est-ce pas?
They'll take it further. They'll say gambling.
So then the conversation we should be having is to criminalize alcohol consumption.
Well,
Not
then you're
saying
going to
that
have to
then we should
criminalize
open
very
up
many other
everything.
things.
Then
For
we'll criminalize
instance,
very many things.
like, for instance, gambling. Oh, yes, I'm calling it generally gambling.
Yep.
The same argument you have with regards to alcohol and how it has ruined families. There are those who argue gambling has ruined more families than... You see, in this modern communication age that we live in, control on certain issues become that much more complicated. In terms of just understanding where can be obtained, how it can be obtained, even how to circumvent the law. Now, if the issue here is cannabis, it's with us. You see, we're not discussing something that is yet to be imported. It has been with us from time immemorial. Ask people and they'll tell you they've known relatives used to smoke it when they were young. Stories galore as to the consumption of this particular product. Okay? And there are those who even argue that they didn't see the adverse effects. Yes, maybe they didn't see. It doesn't mean the adverse effects were not there. Okay?
They're there.
Oh, yes, they most certainly are. You talk to anyone who focuses on the study of neuroscience and the findings that they have found in terms of cognitive impairment, just direct effect depending on the ages, unborn children, effects on pregnancies. My friend, there's evidence to show that the harm caused by cannabis is vast. But alongside that, you can count many other products whose adverse effects will mirror it in terms of just the depth.
Do they put it
Or
in the
be
same
worse,
scale,
even.
those neuroscientists and the researchers, do they put it in the same scale? The adverse effects of cannabis, the adverse effects of alcohol consumption, of of cigarette consumption. Would they put it in the same?
There are those who have attempted to mention, but when someone is talking about cannabis, they'll just talk about cannabis and their finding. So a lot of that comparison is left to you. You look at those who study the effects of alcohol, same neuroscientists, but study alcohol. Then look at their findings and compare them. You see, again, if you're comparing harm, at what point does harm become really harmful? And then at what point is it just little harm?
Yeah, I mean, some people say that if you're dead, that's when there's harm. But before that, you're fine.
You're fine. You're okay.
So, I mean,
Let's
really,
go
what
to the
is
phone
the measure?
lines. Our friend Ed Gitonga in Nyeri is on the line. Good morning, Ed.
Morning. How are you doing, guys?
We're
Good.
fine, thank you.
Now, okay, currently I'm in Nanyuki, but now here's the thing, I watched the documentary. I actually still have it. It's a 2-hour documentary on the pros and cons of marijuana as far as cancer is concerned and other diseases. And I can tell you this for a fact. First of all, I really like what Senator Ledama was quipping in, because he was brutally honest. And you know, when you don't look at things the way they are, when you don't open up your brain to ideas, you will always be dormant. And here's the thing. For example, right now, if you pop up the marijuana debate right now, people are just going to think of the negative effects. But if you tell someone that marijuana can cure cancer or something like that, someone would rather go and experience radiation and chemotherapy and everything else as opposed to TCHP. And I can tell you this for a fact. Unless people open up their mind, I don't think this whole marijuana debate is going to be positive on any day.
It's going to remain the way it is.
Yes, it's going to remain the way it is.
Why do you think people have closed up their mind to it? Is it because of
why.
what they have experienced? Is it because of what they've seen?
Okay, I can tell you this. For example, there are some people who are still in university. They smoke pot, but their mothers will be like, mtoto wangu hajaivuta bangi, mtoto wangu is good. But here's the thing, if you look at it, maybe that person needs that boost from TCHP to do his thing.
Okay.
I can tell you this: criminalizing this thing is what really makes
it's not the way to go.
It's not the way to go.
Okay.
Actually, if you look at other areas, not only cannabis. For example, there's a country in Europe, I think it's Finland, if I'm not wrong, or Netherlands, one of them. They have a prison system where they have legalized nearly everything, and their prisons, they don't even have occupants, some of them.
It's the Netherlands.
Because they had another new outlook as opposed to how people look at things.
Ed, thank you. Let's hear from Anthony in Kisumu. Have a good day too. Anthony, good morning.
Good morning, Eric and Tim.
How are you?
I think we should not look at U.S. and other developed countries per se in regards to this thing. Locally, do we have legislation in African countries, East African countries that legalize marijuana?
Yes.
And for what purpose? And what process did they follow to arrive at that? We can pick that. May God rest his soul. The late Ken Okoth, I think, wanted to bring something in Kenyan parliament. And we really supported it. The stereotype that marijuana is for bad people. In my village where I come from, in Nyalgunga, they say if somebody has dreadlocks, ameanza kuvuta bangi. So even the people who fashionista like us who want to put dreadlocks, you go to the village, they say Jamad Njaga. City will understand that. Mvuta bangi. It's not in Kenyan way. We give it that name. Perhaps we use the botanical name, scientific name when passing the legislation, so that the people like us who just believe bangi is bad will pass it or will support it, knowing that it's for medicinal purposes, for other purposes. Perhaps we'll be told which type of painkillers or drugs that are made of this substance, so that perhaps it could be morphine. It could be any other drug that we buy over the counter and we don't know the negative part of police arrested Bangi and they worth 5 billion. I think that's what should not be there. Somebody once told me that how do police know the value? What's the street value? Where is it sold? Where was that price set that if it's 10 kgs, it's worth 100 million? So we should shun such type of news and think of the good ones. Apart from that, it was street value that was banned, that was recovered by police, that people with dreadlocks take and all that stuff. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Wangwana, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
My contribution towards my issue ya marijuana for today iko kwenye reservation. Mimi nitachangia mambo mengine mliongea leo asubuhi.
Yes.
Kama mtaniruhusu.
Unaruhusiwa?
Mliongea habari ya behavior ya trash, how to tackle those behavior. It's a very good starting point. Nimependelea sana mazungumzo ya leo. Lakini tungeongezea tena mada nyingine zaidi ya hiyo. Kuna hii behavior ya apathy, huruma, behavior ya kuwa mkweli, ya generous with truth, behavior ya kuwa positive mindset ya prosperity kiafya, kimali, kijamii, across the board. Na naomba kama itawezekana vile mmechangia kuhusu behavior ya usafi, tujaribu pia tuongee mambo ya behavior ya huruma na hiyo mambo ya ukweli na positive mindset na mambo kama haya. Na kumalizia, bado nitaendelea kuwaomba kila siku mpaka musinywe kwa nileteni expert wa human behavior aweze kuchangia mambo hii ya behavior ya binadamu. Mimi nashukuru sana, muwe na siku njema, mbarikiwe.
Asante. Brian in Nakuru, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Legalize it. I say legalize it.
Why?
This thing doesn't have any. This just a plant. God created it. Man created alcohol. Man created opium. But God created the herb. When He said everything, and He said everything He created is beautiful, and it is nice. So who are you to tell me that I can eat vegetable and I can eat mangoes? But when it comes to this plant, I cannot take this plant. So you should legalize this.
So you don't think it has any harm? You don't think it has any harm?
Okay, it has harms. Everything in this world has the negative side. But you have to look, usually we take the positive, and the harm is just, even being born has harm, and I'm here. So we just look at the positive side. The negative side, we try to diminish it and we correct it. So far, currently, we have a lot that it can provide for the society.
All right.
We are saying, let's say we are saying we are not. You are saying it's illegal, but still it's being used. So we just legalize it.
So that it's formal.
Because still it's being used. We can't say since it is legal, nobody's using it.
Sawa bana. Thank you very much, Brian.
Yeah, legalize it.
Okay. 0719-012-600. Should we not legalize marijuana in the country? Time for us to take a quick break at 12 minutes to 10 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 0719-012-600. Also, post your comment on Spice FM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. We'll be back shortly. 10 minutes to 10. Well, the legalizing conversation continues. Should we legalize it or not? 0719012600. I'm sure there are very many more people who have comments on social media.
Yeah, sure. Singam Jinga says, am I the only one thinking it's only Africans who misuse drugs? In the United States, alcohol is legal, but they drink it in dignity. I don't know which United States these are, but okay. In Jamaica, weed is legal, but people are cool. But what about Kenya? Unavuta bangi, unataka tu kupiga watu. For me, I know cigarettes are worse than cannabis. So the way to go about this is to legalize it, but decriminalize it. One of the effects of bang is abuse of time management. That's what somebody else has said. As long as it's regulated, there will be no problem. Everybody's asking for the regulation.
Ask yourself the simple question. If we take the view that this is a food, okay, something that you can consume, okay, because there is edible cannabis. Now, the truth of the matter is this. Then compare it with any other food that you want to, okay? And the answer that you will come to is that, yes, the benefits of food we all understand, but there are also side effects, okay? The truth of the matter is not, in my mind, in decriminalizing or legalizing it. No. We know the good it does. But remember, this isn't like alcohol which is bottled. It isn't something that has a social construct tied to it, where you go to a place so that, well, in the Netherlands, they do have it, where you go to certain cafes where you are allowed to consume this particular product. So in so doing, it's normalized. And also, the one thing that then happens is that you destigmatize it.
Yeah.
See, we are talking about a product that has been stigmatized for so long that no matter what you say, you're hitting a wall. The stigma sticks. And the reason is because the effects that have been seen by most people are not the pleasant, because the pleasant one, just someone is normal. It's them who know what's happening to them. But it's what's adverse. And this is something that you're not going to get out of people's heads immediately.
I'm looking at countries in the region and the reasons why they've gone ahead to legalize the production of marijuana. And to me, it makes sense. If I look at Rwanda and the steps that they've made towards development and looking at this cash crop that could actually have the potential of bringing in astounding revenues for the country, and then as late as a month ago going ahead and legalizing this, then I can see what it's going to do for the country. And I think that we need to get to the point, honestly, we need to get to and Uganda, I mean, was already ahead of Rwanda as far as that is concerned. But I do think that in line with everything else, that it's about time that we started to have open and honest conversations about the things that could actually aid development in our country. Whether or not previously they had some kind of taboo attached to them. You don't want to have a conversation about things like, number one, having the sex conversation with your young child. Because forever, there's something that has been tagged to that is kind of like, stay away from it, stay in the dark. You don't want to talk about things that would actually help if you opened it up just a little bit. The countries who've done this, there's a reason why. Is it regulated? Absolutely. If we're looking at the laws that surround the legalization of the production of marijuana in Rwanda, for example, tight laws in terms of regulation. But are they looking at the benefit for the country at the end of the day? Absolutely. And if we're going to go beyond just what it could do in terms of damage and people getting high and misbehaving, what it could actually do in terms of upliftment economy-wise for countries, I don't think that's actually a joke. I think it's quite major in terms of what could happen in leaps and bounds.
You see, it can't be just legalize it on its own.
No.
There has to be accompanying policies.
For sure, and regulation.
Because in Rwanda, for instance, you cannot eat and walk at the same time. If you drive through Kigali, you will be hard-pressed to find litter anywhere.
It's
hard-pressed.
Yeah.
Precisely. People know. You go to Singapore, this Kenyan habit of clearing your throat
They'll
and
beat you.
They
beat
on
you.
the floor. You have a problem.
They actually beat you with a 6-foot whip.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is there are countries where it is possible because people have understood that certain antisocial behavior not encouraged. In fact, should they put discouraged actively?
All right. Okay. But in this particular case, you're talking about reversing what people have been doing. Like you said yourself, you have grown up knowing people who have been taking bangi, and everybody knows huyu ni mtu wa bangi.
Yes.
And you can even, smell at a certain kabush certain thicket when those guys are there and they are consuming.
Actually,
so what regulation will come in so that to stop you smoking it in that thicket?
You will be applying that regulation outside the boundaries of their home, because in many communities, like the community I come from, elderly people are the ones who used to smoke bangi. They even had sessions with their bangi smoking friends. They would just gather and have a nice smoke and chat. Yes. And people were known. So and so that home, that say smokes.
Smokes.
Yes. And many of them lived to a very ripe old age. So if I were to just deduce it from observation, it doesn't age you quickly. Look, the reason why I'm being facetious
Gives
is
a long life.
The reason why I'm being facetious is very, very simple. Science, modern science, has enabled us to understand some of these things that we keep talking about and quibbling about in detail. If one bothers to actually look and read, and you'll find that for every negative thing that you point out, there'll be a positive one.
Sure.
And a really serious one, especially with some of these diseases that are known to be not only chronic but pain-inducing. It has been proved over and over, whether it is cocaine, whether it is cannabis, it has been shown scientifically that they really help reduce the pain. But they do this in conjunction with other medication, not that alone, but they help alleviate. Like, for instance, if someone told you that cannabis helps alleviate or reduce memory loss or even regain memory loss in people who have Alzheimer's, is that not a positive thing? But it's not the only thing that happens. That is not the only thing you must use. It is important to begin an education process that people can understand, not just to query cannabis, but to query things that are brought to you, everything, including our laws, including BBI, including anything that you're told this will be good for you. So that it becomes a normal thing for you to query, so that when you're convinced, then you will be making a decision based on this information that you have been convinced of.
Okay. So let's see how this conversation continues. Let's see whether Gwada and the rest will be able to actually move it to a national conversation, which becomes a bill that's sponsored by a member of parliament who comes out strongly and says, I'm sponsoring this. It's adopted by a committee. It's taken through entire debate process. Let us see. And we'll tutakuwa tu papa hapa. So, today's Proverb City.
He who does not clean his mouth before breakfast always complains that the food is sour. Well, I could argue that if you brush your teeth before you eat, you will complain that the food is sour.
It's the other way around.
Yes, because somehow toothpaste has this effect on your mouth, so food doesn't taste like it normally does. But the point that is being made is valid. You will complain, or you will shift blame and not focus on your lack of preparedness. It is you who will not have taken due process, due time, due diligence, but then you will find a finger. Well, the finger is yours anyway. You'll point that particular finger of yours in the direction that more or less justifies the situation that you're in. And yet, it was always within your control.
So before you start blaming the food, ask yourself whether you had prepared yourself to have a meal.
Yes.
In the first place.
Yes.
Mzuri sana. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow for more conversations from around the country, around the world. From now until 3 o'clock is uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice. And then Monique comes and takes you home on Spice Drive. And then the adults in the room will be here from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And this is Kisiangani, Eric and Barbara. Adults in the room. After that, another session of uninterrupted music until tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. And then uninterrupted talk from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow. And we'll be back here, God willing. Wish you a great day. Have a lovely one. Make sure that as you do this, remember COVID-19 is real and we have a responsibility to protect ourselves and those that we love. Observe all the measures that you ought to. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.